Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Chatting with Nuts on a wonderful Friday. I'm excited to be here because I've been down all week. I got my second vaccine shot, and this is the first day I've really been vertical for most of the day. Definitely no joke there. But I'm also excited, and it's easy to get out of bed today because I got to talk to one of really my first booktube friend here with Alex, and absolutely one of my favorite reviewers. And I'm going to talk about the influence he's had on me here in a bit. But Alex, you want to introduce yourself? Say hello to everybody.
Yeah, you're buttering me up, man. What are you trying to do? Well, for those of you that don't know me, I am Alex Nieves. That is also my channel name. I do mostly fantasy book-related videos, reviews for the most part, and book hauls, because as you can see behind me, I never stop buying books. I'm intentionally not doing a book haul video yet for those because I literally did one 6 days ago. I'm getting into more sci-fi, dabble in some horror, but mostly fantasy. But yeah, Jimmy, like you said, was one of the first like YouTube friends, honestly, that I had kind of coming up around the same time and both sort of growing together, and happy to be here, man.
Yeah, I'm happy for your success. Yeah, it's been good. You know, I just passed 2K last week on stream, and
congrats.
Yeah, thank you very much. And then my friend Alex, I had to figure out which way to point. Alex over here just passed 3,000 subs and posted a really cool Q&A. I only got to watch a little bit of it today. I'm gonna finish.
Wait, you didn't watch the entire thing yet?
I did not yet.
Why am I talking to you?
I was nervous. My palms were sweaty. I said, I'm having Alex on. This is a big deal.
These weeks are heavy.
Yeah. So I definitely go check that out. Over 3,000 subs. If you're not subbed to Alex's channel, by the end of the stream, you will be, I assume. He's a very charming fellow. But Alex was, I think you do an excellent job. I really do.
Appreciate it.
Alex was the first booktuber to actually mention me in a video, I believe. I don't think anyone else gave me a shout out. Yes. And you even pushed me over to the people who watch your channel whenever I was not as active on booktube as I am now, where for almost 6 months now,
badgered the shit out of you.
Yeah, you're like,
make more videos.
And it was nice because you said that because you felt, that I made good stuff. And that really, that meant a lot to me whenever I was trying to find my footing in the community. But Alex is always the first one to reach out, first one to push me out in a video. So I get to tell you here now, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it,
man. Well, you deserve it. You earned it. I mean, your content's great. Your channel's awesome. So happy to help.
I appreciate it. I really do. And I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not jealous of you, because if anyone here follows Alex on social media, you saw he's now internet famous because of some beautiful, beautiful bookshelves
that you are not allowed to see, because this is what you get to look at.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I know that in your Discord, which if you're not in Alex's Discord, you're missing out. It's a great group of people there, really good at conversation going on. It's one of the only 2 Discord servers I'm a part of. Rhythma and Alex are the only 2 Discords that I'm in. And Alex's is wonderful. You should go join it. But you kind of explained what happened in there, and you talked about on your channel, but like, what exactly made you go with custom bookshelves over maybe doing something like, Billy's or something else? Because I went with Billy's and I really like them, but after seeing your setup, I'm very intrigued.
So I had Billy's in my old house because basically my previous office, as it were, was in our old house. As soon as you walk down into the basement and turn left, there was like a little square of just space. And I was like, all right, that'll be my office. So then when I got, into YouTube last year, yeah, exactly. You don't get to see my shelves on his channel.
Yeah, these are the good.
You get to see this bare ass wall on a dog bed. I hadn't, I was getting back into reading, and I was like, okay, I need some kind of shelves. So we did IKEA because it was just, they were cheap. They looked nice. They worked pretty well. So I threw a bunch of those up. And then as I started just buying books relentlessly, I was like, okay, this will eventually run out, but I'm going to fill these up. And then when we moved, my wife did not want me to have Billy bookshelves in our nice new house in an office that we were going to sort of design and make look pretty. So we actually knew a carpenter, a local guy who had built stuff for us in the past. He built like a bar for us in our old house. We wanted him to build some bookshelves. So my wife designed everything, picked out the paint colors, all that. And as you see on my channel, I'm pointing at it. You can't see it because it's a secret. He built all this, and it was way cheaper than anybody else because a lot of people quote insane prices. So rather than have, I don't know, 8 Billy shelves or whatever it would take to kind of get floor to ceiling in here, we just had it built out, had some lights put in, and just sort of make it more of like an office rather than just a library.
Yeah.
So I went with her design. It's basically double the space that I had. So that's awesome. And I wanted it to be big enough so that anytime I want to move books, because obviously every time I buy stuff, I have to reorganize. Like when I have really tall books, like I'm pointing at it for some reason when you can't see what I'm pointing at.
It's fine.
A World of Ice and Fire, is like this tall.
Yeah.
I can see yours. You know how tall it is. So I made sure that every shelf was big enough to fit that so that I wouldn't have to worry about like adjusting shelves when I moved it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just, she designed it all and it looks great and turned out pretty awesome. And I'm still waiting for stuff behind me, but
Christian, yeah,
you want me to just take like a picture of it and give it to you? And you feel like just green screen it over?
If anyone could edit it properly, it would be Christian. I mean, his videos are pretty excellent. So I mean, it's a question I was going to ask, but I guess Christian jumped the gun on it. It's so funny you talk about readjusting the height of shelves because the second shelf of these Billies, I have moved them so often, and I'm getting to the point where like I have my Lord of the Rings display on the middle, and then I have Arya's dagger from season 8, Peter Baelish, whatever. And I might have to take them down just for the sole fact that I am getting too many books.
Put them up top.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking about putting them up top, and I was also thinking about doing something more kind of like what you have, not exactly clearly.
Like a floating shelf.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
I really like the idea of a floating shelf. And I know people are probably like, why are they talking about shelves so much? But I think everybody that's really into books has to have some sort of appreciation for a good setup. And I think you have the best I've seen, I think.
Hilariously, it went like randomly viral on Twitter for a day.
It did,
for like no reason. And I was just like, okay, I don't know what the hell's happening, but that's fun.
Yeah, I hit favorite on it, and then it pops up again like somebody else favorite. I was like, oh, and it had like, I mean, 1,000. Was it over 10,000?
No, it's at like, let me look. I think it was like 6, but it was like none of my tweets get any kind of like traction, but people like looking at bookshelves apparently. So
yeah,
somebody in my Discord was like, oh my God, somebody verified retweeted this. And I was just like, who?
And you said, that's it. I'm famous. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Good to see you, Chase. Chase has an excellent channel over there. I'm doing good. Alex, how are you? I should have asked you.
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for asking me 10 minutes into your broadcast.
Hey, no problem. My brain's still a little foggy from being sick all week. This is a game time decision. I was down all this week. I did listen to audiobooks the whole time, which was nice because I physically reading a book this week was just impossible because I had such a bad headache.
I bet.
I finished Wheel of Time book 5 this week. I think I listened to 11 hours on audio.
That's too much Wheel of Time, man.
It's too much. Like, it's too much.
11 hours in what, 2 days?
No, that was 1 day. Because I couldn't even watch. You can ask my wife. I swear
it's too much.
I couldn't watch TV. Like I was just on my back staring at the ceiling. So I absolutely was. The only thing I could do really was listen to the Wheel of Time audiobook, which thankfully is a pretty good audiobook. I mean, Michael Kramer and Kate Redding are tremendous.
As long as you're not at 1 times speed.
Yes, I was at 2.
Because then it's literally impossible to listen to.
Yeah, I destroyed Fires of Heaven. So my story with Wheel of Time, most people I think on my channel at least know this, but to recap, I read 1 through 4 last year, took a year off. I actually got 200 pages into Fires of Heaven and I stopped. And Alex, do you remember why I stopped?
Because it was the best thing you've ever read and you were never going to read again.
Well, I was a little burnout. And then I went on Goodreads and Alex had been reading Wheel of Time.
Listen.
I got to tell the people.
That on me.
I got to tell the people.
Don't read my Goodreads.
So I went to Goodreads and Alex had been reading pretty much alongside of me. You know, it wasn't planned, but we were going through it. And I thought, I'll see what my good buddy Alex has to say about book 5 Wheel of Time. So I see, he says, it's a little slow. Ending was cool, but they really need
you're about to hear is a lie.
He really needs to pick up the middle, RJ. And at the bottom, he just spoils a huge character moment.
Nope.
And I'm like, no spoiler tag, nothing. And I'm like, my buddy Alex just stabbed me in the back. He's a dark friend.
Listen, I cannot be held accountable for what I type in Goodreads. Okay. Wasn't
And
my
it's
fault.
funny because I didn't say anything. I wasn't even that mad. It
I know
just
you
like,
told me like 2 months ago. And I was
yeah,
like, shit, did I? I'm sorry.
I told him like a year later, I'm like, yeah, you actually spoiled book 5 Wheel of Time. He's like, no, I didn't. And he goes back and looks at his review and goes, oh my God, what was
I
I
apparently
doing?
did that too in which no one's gonna watch it at this point probably, but I think it was either Way of Kings or Words of Radiance. There, one of my Stormlight reviews on my channel, I start saying something and I'm like, oh, this is a minor spoiler. I'm just gonna say it. And it was like one of the biggest moments in the book that I just like for some reason didn't think it was that big of a deal. And people were yelling at me. They were like, what do you mean that was a minor spoiler? I was just like, oops. My bad.
You know, it happens. It happens.
It does.
And I, honestly, I'm kind of glad it happened because it gave me a year away from Wheel of Time, and I needed it. I went through the first 4 books way too fast, and it just
I was doing
happens.
you a favor. I knew you needed saving from the Wheel of Time.
And that's what a good friend does.
Exactly.
You saved me from myself in some of the boredom that I was feeling. But you asked how I felt about book 5. Book 5, like the other Wheel of Time books after book 2, have been a mixed bag for me. I really liked the last 80 pages quite a bit. There was another, the moment you actually spoiled for me, I actually didn't like that moment, not because it upset me, but because I didn't think it was very well done, to be honest. I thought it was very random. And I know people are like, well, what are you talking about? I don't want to spoil it for everyone else.
Go read my Goodreads.
Yeah. Go read the Goodreads. But it's just one of those things where like so many people have talked about it that I'm not sure if I'm even going to review it on the channel unless if like a lot of people want me to do it, because I'm just mixed on it. There's so many good things that I like about the series, but there's also a lot of stuff that if I read too much of it, like doing those long sprints of it, I just can't. So
it's
for me,
numbing at that point.
Yeah, and you're kind of back like reading a book a month now, right? In the real time.
I'm about to read Winter's Heart.
Do you feel like reading it frequently grates on you more or no?
So like once a month is fine. And I do it a lot on audio just because it's easy enough to just throw the audiobook on. Because my whole like philosophy with these long ass fantasy books is if they're huge, I usually mix in audio and reading because I feel like I get through it a little bit faster. And I'm not always in the mood to sit down and read 300 pages of, Robert Jordan's description. So it's easy enough for me to just like play a game or something because I still game a lot and just throw on an audiobook and sort of listen to it. Yeah. I mean, it probably kills my comprehension a little bit at times, but it's not. There's some of these books, man. Like I'm looking at my Wheel of Time books right here, and Path of Daggers was just not a fun time. So I'm glad I did it on audio and just kind of went through it in a couple days because it was not good. So
yeah, your review supposedly wasn't super positive for it. I really want to watch it, but I got to wait till I catch up. So that's something to look forward to.
The slog is starting to hit me. I didn't think A Crown of Swords was part of the slog. I actually liked that book. Path of Daggers was not fun, and I'm probably not going to like the next 2, maybe. Yikes. So, but I feel like once a month is enough for me. I definitely don't want to burn through it. And I didn't mean to stop last year because I stopped after Fires of Heaven for 5 or 6 months, whatever it was.
Pretty long.
That wasn't planned. It was more so just like I didn't want my channel to be Wheel of Time. And
like
I don't want it.
Mine is becoming a Robin Hobb channel.
That's fair. I didn't want to be like a Dresden channel or anything because I was starting all these really long series sort of at the same time. And I didn't want to just do 14 books of Wheel of Time and have that be my channel. Because one, I probably would have hated reading that much Wheel of Time at once. And I just wanted to read everything, which I'm still kind of doing that. But I committed myself to this year finishing Wheel of Time. So that's like the one big series that I'm going to finish this year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think having those overarching goals for most people is a good thing in the booktube community. For me this year, it was really like Realm of the Elderlings and trying Malazan. Like those were the 2 big ones. And then I just randomly, because I'm chaotic, threw in. I kind of went a little crazy this month. I'm going to talk about my wrap up. But this month's been a little too much, man. I think I've been through 2 or 1 Dark Tower books, 3 Realm of the Elderling books, and then I randomly read Wheel of Time book 5. Like I think I did
all the longest series possible.
Yeah, I did a bad job is
Yeah.
what I did. I went a little too chaotic, and I think I paid for it. I'm not in a slump, but Wheel of Time 5 definitely started edging me towards that. But right
Yeah.
now I'm reading Mort, which you've read,
Hell
and
yeah, man.
man, I'm really enjoying that a lot.
If you're down with Pratchett's humor, it's fantastic. And I mean, I've only read Morton Guards, but they were both fantastic. And I just picked up Reaper Man, and I'm probably gonna read like all the Death books and then all the Guards books. But
That's what I was going to do.
it's like right up my alley, and they're super short. So like they're so good and they're short, so it's a fantastic blend.
What surprised me about it is that there's like a legit plot to it, and I thought it was going to be very airy, like very light, and it is light and airy, but the plot's pretty good. Like I was impressed. Like even if you aren't into Pratchett's humor, I could see you like maybe not continuing, but you could read more. And again, I only have 50 pages left, so I'm not at the complete ending, but I'm just kind of blown away with how good the plot is.
Yeah,
I was impressed.
That's because Pratchett's incredibly smart. Yes. And honestly, like the way that we feel about Mort just kind of sets you up for success for the rest of the series, because they're like some of the weaker books is the beginning of some of these series that everybody tells you to start with. And then it's just like everything's amazing.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
And that is very intriguing to me, because I think Mort is really strong. Like I'd recommend it to almost anybody looking for like a palate cleanser, to something light. I couldn't have picked a better book after having a kind of a mixed reaction to Wheel of Time 5. I couldn't have picked a better book to pull me up. I really couldn't have.
For sure.
And Chase wants to know if I've read any Brian Lee Durfee. I've not, but I own both of his books. And I will be reading those. And I believe, Alex, you're reading it right now, I think, right?
Yeah. This gigantic behemoth of book 2. Yeah.
What can you say about Brian Lee Durfee's books?
So they are the polar opposite of what I would expect from his YouTube persona, because they're actually just like really good. And I just mentioned this in my Q&A and assumptions video. Like what surprised me was reading The Forgetting Moon, because I only knew him from his YouTube channel, and he's just hilarious and kind of all over the place most of the time with reviews. His writing style is actually really good. I like to say that it's a blend of sort of like a John Gwynn and a Robert Jordan, where he's sort of that mix of like, it's better paced than The Wheel of Time. It's really descriptive, but not quite as bogged down as RJ is, where he'll go like too far, in my opinion, and like describing everything. He does action really well. The entire world of these books is super messed up. So if you're any kind of fan of grimdark or like sort of shitty places in fantasy, he does that really well. He's got really cool assassins. He's got horribly incredible, awesome violence. There's like a whole religious plot line that sort of encompasses the world, and it's almost like a commentary on religion at times and how it can control people, and that's really well done. So like I really love these books, and then getting to sort of like know him and talk to him about it, it's cool because he's in Discord too. So like he'll jump in channels and talk to us about it. And just the books are awesome, man. They're really long, but it's super impressive that this is like his first 2 novels that he ever published, because he's talked about it on his channel. He wrote like other random shit years and years ago that he says are terrible. But this was like his foray into epic fantasy, and it's really well done.
And he's a student of the game. If you haven't seen Brian Lee Durfee's channel, I highly recommend it. One, because I think it's hilarious.
Oh yeah.
But he has a lot of good things to say, and he doesn't read the books you would imagine. He reads Westerns,
everything.
Romance. I think I saw him the other day. I didn't watch that one.
Religious books, like every genre.
Yes. And I think that if you only watch his YouTube, you might be put off in the fact of thinking, if this gentleman wrote a book, that it might be very sporadic and it kind of out there. But everything I have heard about The Forgetting Moon, is that the book 1 title? I always forget it. Everything I have heard about it checks so many boxes with me. And I think that it's a series that, I mean, it's definitely what I'm reading in this. It was on my to read in 2021 video. Yeah. So I think after I finish Realm of the Elderlings, I'm going to read maybe one other series. And then right at the end of the year, because book 3 for that series that he wrote is coming out, right? Early 2022, I think.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't tell us a release date yet, but I don't think it'll be this year, but probably early next year.
Yeah, I might end my year with that series. And I like to end my year on a high note. And that's why last year I started like Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn right at the ending. It written to the beginning of the year, but my God, I loved it. And I feel like that's a series, like I'm kind of keeping it as a treat at the end of the year. You know what I mean? The religious overtones in his review of Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwen is what really sold me on it. I said, oh, I got to read this, because he said, man, me and John Gwen wrote a very similar story. And I loved the concepts and the themes that John Gwen went with for the Faithful and the Fallen. And and to see any other aspects of that, like another take or through a different lens, I could really see myself getting behind that big time. So
I see the similarities. I wouldn't compare them directly. I think they are written pretty differently, but there's a lot of things that you could sort of parallel between the two. And I mean, like his action when it happens is really well done. His characters, for the most part, are really well done. Like the political intrigue and stuff behind the scenes, the people pulling the strings is really well done. It was just a huge surprise, and seeing other people in Discord reading it and talking about it, like praising it, was just kind of awesome too.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think there's a niche crowd around his work that's really pumped up and really excited, and it reminds me again of John Gwen, because John Gwen is certifiably blowing up, right? Which is so good, because one, he's a great author and a great human being. So hydration. Yes, I am sponsored today by Hydro Jug. Not really.
I am sponsored by Potbelly milkshakes.
I was wondering where you got your milkshake from. Are you a vanilla or chocolate guy?
Always vanilla. I don't like chocolate ice cream.
Yeah, I'm not a big chocolate ice cream fan either, which was probably going to get me some heat. Is that the Forgetting Moon book? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Blackest Heart is book 2.
Mm-hmm. And they're big books. If you like big books, let me tell you what, they're Stormlight level big.
The first one's only like 6. I think it's between like 600 and 700 pages. But what, I'm not good enough for you, Christian?
Yeah.
You want to replace me already?
Yeah,
I've been on here for 22 minutes. The Forgetting Moon is like 680 pages or something, but the actual book itself is huge. And I think it's just thicker pages, because like some of my Stormlight floppy paperbacks are gigantic, but the paper's really, really thin. It's the same deal with this, but Blackest Heart is significantly bigger. And then Lonesome Crown, I think he said, is going to be even bigger.
Damn.
Yeah, this one's 900 and something.
The font size is where they get you.
Yeah.
Because when I picked up To Green Angel Tower, I was like, man, this is a thick book. But I was like, it's not bigger than Stormlight. And then you open it up and the text is yay small. I'm like, this is going to take me, it took me like a month and a half to read that.
Yeah. That book's gigantic.
Yeah, I agree, Shad. I hope Brian Lee Durfee blows up as well. I haven't even read the books, but just overall,
people need to read them, man. They're good. And that's what I just mentioned this too. Like if you go to Goodreads, there's not that many reviews for it. Like
I'll be adding my hat to that pile for sure. It's like I have a feeling, and I've been getting much better. And I actually want to ask you about this. Do you feel like you're able to pick out books now that you're going to enjoy a lot more? Like, do you feel like you've refined your taste?
For the most part, yeah. I can usually, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I do look at like Goodreads and like for specific people usually.
Yeah.
I kind of like know going into it, if somebody that I know and sort of like am similar with and taste liked it, I'm pretty sure I'm going to like it. And then sometimes I just grab shit that I'm like, that sounds cool. And
well,
then
that's
we'll see.
A perfect segue into something I wanted to talk to you about. So one of my favorite things to do if I'm going to like something, I look at Chris Bookish Cauldron, and that's usually where I start. Like you two, there's enough taste between you two that I can feel like I can pick out something that's going to work for me. And you reviewed Assassin's Apprentice a while ago. This is by last year. And I remember you weren't so hot on it. I don't think you said it was like the worst.
I didn't even review it. I mentioned that I read it though, and I did not like it.
I think you reviewed it on Goodreads. And
I did for sure. Yeah.
3 out of 5 or something. And I actually it was on the top of my TBR at that moment.
Oh, don't tell me I knocked it down.
I knocked it down and waited a whole year.
I'm sorry.
I ended up reading it because of Chris Bookish Cauldron. Yeah. And the reason I bring this up is because you just reread this week, right?
Yep.
I want to hear your thoughts a year later with a reread under your belt.
Well, if you looked at my updated Goodreads, Jimothy. My excuse was to get the illustrated editions to reread them because why not? I like buying books. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars this time around. I knew what I was getting into as far as like what to expect from what kind of book it was, which was my main issue that I've told this story several times to people. Coming back to reading. Yes, he does. Patrick is the reason I read a lot of things.
Yes, me too.
And he's been a huge champion of John Gwynne way before we even read it.
Patrick is why I read John Gwynne. Yeah, I should have mentioned Patrick earlier. I forgot.
I didn't even know Patrick at the time because I came back to reading last year, right? So when I started my channel, I didn't know who Patrick was other than, he's like a super popular Goodreads reviewer.
Yeah. And
that was like way before he had a channel, but I followed Mike a lot and I knew that Mike talked about Faithful in the Fallen. And I was like, well, I had just bought Malice. So thank you, sir. I had just bought Malice, but like I didn't read it until later on. And then I burned through most of that series and I was like, yeah, this is really good. And then now that I know Patrick, he's talked about Gwyn forever.
Yeah.
But back to Assassin's Apprentice. My issue was when I came back to reading last year, I walked into a Barnes & Noble because I had just started reading Mistborn and Red Rising, I think, and I was really into those. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to the bookstore and just start grabbing stuff. So like I grabbed Eye of the World. I grabbed Assassin's Apprentice.
So similar.
A couple other things. And I started with Assassin's Apprentice and I was just like, all right, cool. Assassin's story. This is going to be dope. Like not at all what I was expecting. The writing was very much classic, fantasy and not what I was expecting from that story. It was really just a character study of Fitz. It was sort of depressing at times because of what he goes through. And I just remember getting through like 3/4 of the book and I was just like, man, this is not what I thought this was going to be. Like, I got to get through this book. And then I kind of chalked it up to expectations. So when I came back to it this month, I knew what to expect and I could kind of just like appreciate the story and what was happening.
Yeah.
And it's just really well done. Even like the highlights for me from the first read were basically just the finale because I thought that was really well done. It was even better this time around. And as I was remembering things, I was like, oh no, I know what's about to happen. I was like, I don't want to read this part. But no, it was great. I'm excited to continue. I at least am going to get all through Farseer in the next 2 months. And then probably continue, but maybe not right away since there's 16.
Yeah. I just finished Live Ship and man.
It's really well done, man. She's great with the character work. She's great at the political stuff in the background. It's obviously not like an action-packed book.
Yeah.
But like the few scenes where there is sort of not even a battle, but like combat, I guess. Conflict, it's super intimate and well done. And the way that she writes it is just you can definitely like feel what's going on. Like the whole scene with the forged, like yeah.
I mean, I like everything I'm hearing because
it's good.
Here at the Fantasy Network, we're Robin Hobb supporters.
Stands,
full stop.
I'll be reviewing it next week. It's good. I'm definitely excited to continue where I was not before. The only reason that I initially planned on continuing is because after I read it, I was just YouTubing Assassin's Apprentice reviews because I was like, everybody talks about Robin Hobb, and I didn't click with it at all. And I don't remember the guy's channel. I don't even think he makes videos anymore, but I found a guy's channel who reviewed book 2. And he said that it changed his mind on the series, and now he loves the Farseer in general because he hated book 1. And then he read book 2 and was just like, this is why everyone needs to continue because even if you don't like book 1, Royal Assassin is so good that like you need to. And then that sort of retroactively made him like book 1. So I was like, all right, I will eventually continue because I was like, that guy that I found on the internet felt exactly the same as me and then loved it. So
I said that in my trilogy review. I said, even if you didn't love Assassin's Apprentice, I think that Royal Assassin is the best book I've read thus far this year, and that's over 2 Green Angel Tower. And just as a book, like I even liked it more than I liked Live Ship more than Farseer by like an inch.
Yeah.
But Royal Assassin is still the best single book I've read this year, without a doubt, in my mind. So I'm just so glad that you gave it another shot, and I'm glad we grow as readers, right?
Yeah,
I think me and you started so close to each other. And it's so funny hearing you talk about going to Barnes and Noble, picking up books. That's what I did. My Christmas to myself, I said, me and my wife, we do a thing. We don't really do gifts. We kind of just spend the day together and get stuff we want, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'll get that for you, even though obviously we share the same money, right?
Yeah.
So I remember I just said, all I want to do is I want to go to the bookstores and I just want to, you know, take my arm down the fantasy shelves and just knock them into the reusable bag, you know, because I'm environment friendly here. And I did the same thing as you know, and then I've eventually probably rebought half the books I bought at that Christmas in trade paperback because I didn't know I hated mass market paperbacks until then. So
yeah, that's when I got grilled for a while because my Eye of the World was like the one mass market Wheel of Time book that I had. And I had started to get the trade paperbacks and I went up to Lord of Chaos in those. And then somebody in Discord linked somebody reselling basically the entire hardback collection. Nice. It was missing like 2 books, but it was just like his used collection that he sold. It was like $150 for like 12 of them. So I was just like, all right, doing hardbacks. So then I bought that immediately and then filled in the last 2 books. So now I have like the entire hardback collection and then like half of a trade paperback collection. So I'm just like,
I have all the mass market paperback Wheel of Times.
Yeah.
But I have been going and just, it's a hunt, right? I'm on the great hunt for the Wheel of Time hardback covers. And what I do is I just go to used bookstores. And when I see it, I grab one. And I got 3 and they're not in order. They're just random. And I'm just going to keep doing that until I find them all. I've been doing the same thing with A Song of Ice and Fire first editions. And I've been able to find a couple. Nice. Trying not to pay a boatload of money. But that's just like something I've been doing recently that I really like. But it's funny to hear our things. Everything we've done is so similar. And it's one of my
my biggest issue with used bookstores, at least the ones near me, is they're almost all mass market.
Yeah.
And I walk up and down the aisles and I'm just like, nope, I'm not buying these. I hate mass market paperbacks, especially for longer, like bigger fantasy books, because they're just so tiny and just like it's not comfortable to hold it.
And it's all Terry Goodkind.
There's
it's always Terry Goodkind.
Probably for a reason. There's what I always find. Michael J Sullivan. Yes, when his books are back in stock on his website, I plan on buying them through him because they're the same price and he signs them. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a gentleman that I've been very interested in reading. I've heard he writes some of the best companionship, which honestly I want more of. Like it's nice to have great characters every now and then, but sometimes you just want a good, friendship. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was watching, I can't remember who it was now, but they I can't believe I'm forgetting, but they reviewed Age of Myth and it sounded awesome. And I just don't know where I'm going to start with him yet. I guess is really probably publication order because that's what I always
do. That's what I'm going to do too. Yeah. But the whole like the used bookstore thing. I see when I go to the fantasy section, there's a lot of like the not Wheel of Time books, but definitely look like Wheel of Time books, where it's just like old school, like Michael Whalen paintings everywhere. And I'm just like, what? This looks exactly like the Wheel of Time, but I don't know what it is. And there's like 35 books here. It's like, what is this? Or it's like half of Shannara or like all those like old school.
It's always Shannara.
Yeah.
And David Gemmell, who I really want to read, by the way, but they never have the David Gemmell books I want to freaking buy, man. And I'm like, why? Like he
wrote a lot of books, man.
He did. He wrote so many.
I think he wrote like 100 books.
When I had Matt on the first episode chatting with Nuts, we talked about how awesome the pulpy old Dungeons and Dragons covers are, and I love.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and
Legend, yes,
the
Draenei Saga.
Someone said mass market paperback represent. I actually agree with you. It's just that there's certain books I don't want mass market paperback. Just certain books. Wheel of Time, I don't mind. Towers of Midnight or whatever is like, I don't know, yay big. So that's gonna be a tough one. Or Malazan.
Like I would never get Malazan books in trade. I bought Gardens of the Moon in trade because I don't want a gigantic mass market like that. Yeah. And like I bought because I have book 1 of Sword of Truth. I have Wizard's First Rule. I don't know if I'm ever gonna read it. I bought it for like $2 used somewhere. But the mass market is like 3 inches thick. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I actually have the first 3 in mass market paperback.
Yeah.
I'm going to try them out this year, see if I can get into the series. And if I do, I'm probably going to have to hunt down the The trade paperbacks. Alvin Smith brings this up, and this is kind of segueing into what I wanted to do. It's just going so smoothly.
It is.
2 books that I DNF'd but want to reread and finish because of BookTube is Blade Itself and Assassin's Apprentice. So obviously we've talked about Assassin's Apprentice, but the other thing that Alex has just finished up, and he put a review out. You should go watch it. It's very good, but we'll talk about it here. Is The Last Argument of Kings, book 3 in the First Law trilogy by Joe Man Abercrombie. What did you love most about First Law, Alex?
I mean, the characters is the easy answer, right? The characters are why you read those books. And again, expectations kind of set me up to think, oh, there's not a plot in these books. Like, and we've talked about this a little bit. There is, and the plot ends up actually being kind of cool. It's just structured differently, right? It's not like you're not getting the band together to go defeat the bad guy. It's just like different plot threads are happening, and it's just sort of. It's not similar to Malazan, but it's sort of similar in the sense that like you're almost just sort of following different plots in a world that exists rather than like go find the sword and kill the Dark One. It's I don't know. It was really well done. His combat for one is outstanding.
So good,
especially when it ramped up and before they were hanged, and then he capitalized on that in Last Argument of Kings. Like the Circle is the best chapter that I think I've read in a Abercrombie book so far, because it was just incredible. He does really well like with dark humor, because I mean if you're following Glocta, you're literally following a torturer. Like he is torturing and killing people, but Joe writes him in such a likable way that like he's fun to follow. Even when he's torturing somebody, he's like making jokes about his tools like not looking good enough and how he's embarrassed because like he's going to pull some guy's teeth out and he's got like a rusty wrench and he's like, I'm normally more prepared for this. Sorry. It's like, that shit's hilarious. It's like he writes these really interesting characters, and even though most of them are garbage humans, they're so fun to follow, and you can't help but sort of like want them to succeed, even though they're garbage. So I mean, just the characters are great, the action's great, his dialogue. And I know that this isn't necessarily him, like he wrote the books, but Stephen Pacey's like audible narration. Some of those characters just like he brings them to life, and just having like Glocta's voice while you're reading, even it just adds that little extra element of like, I don't know, it takes it to the next level.
Yeah, I think what it is that his work has a notable mark on it. Yeah, I call it charm a lot of the times, and I don't want to overuse that word, but lately I've been reading a lot of charming things. Abercrombie absolutely has his own spin and charm, and I think that the plot criticism bothers me. It bothers me a lot because it's not Sando level, right? Like it's not like this intricate thought out thing, but what it is very realistic because we end up talking to people. Like, have you ever just met someone with a wild story? Like, you know, the fact that me and you know each other and that we're talking on this podcast, that is the reality that Joe Abercrombie is writing in, where it's like, hey, I have a torturer and I have, you know, a mercenary, and they are going to cross paths somewhere, and a micro decision is going to put them in the same place at the same time, and then there will be consequences for their paths crossing. That is a plot. I mean, that's what
pays off in book 3, because you do have these stories converge, and then, you know, whether it be by chance or by certain people pulling strings, like they all lead to a very specific ending. Even if you take into consideration like the way that Logan's story wraps up, it's like they're all there for a reason. And no, it's not like, yay, the good guys won at the end of the day. Like the story's over. It's like, this isn't Lord of the Rings. They didn't destroy the ring and like, hooray, like we're saved. It's structured differently. That's just not the story that he's telling. So like there is a plot. It's almost second to the characters. It really is just about these characters. And I don't know if that's, I mean, you could probably tell me, I think you've read more than me. I've only read the first trilogy.
Yeah, I've read them all so far.
The rest of the books, I assume, lead somewhere. I don't think you just completely drop off of what happened in the trilogy.
I think that's kind of the amazing portion of the series. And I said this in my Age of Madness book 2 review. And I said, hey, Joe Abercrombie just suddenly built like one of the best epic fantasy series of all time, and no one paid attention. And I know people, they say this about Realm of the Elderlings too. They say, I don't consider it a series, like a Wheel of Time. Well, they all happen in the same universe, and there's still continuity of the timeline. So for me, it's a series. That's just
Yeah.
how I feel about it. And he doesn't just tie in the characters and the heritage from the first trilogy, but the world itself moves forward, which
Yeah.
nobody really does.
Yeah.
Sanderson's going to do in Mistborn. He's
Yeah.
moved us into like an industrial, and then he's supposed to do cyberpunk later. He's wild. Joe Abercrombie said, "Oh, we started medieval, but now, you know, we have found the industrial revolution.
Yeah.
How does that impact this world?" And for people who hold control like Baez, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's so cool. I love it. I think that he does not get nearly enough credit for, one, his writing ability. I know
It's great.
people think his prose is nothing special. I actually think it's tremendous. I love it. Probably one of my favorite writers.
Yeah.
And I just don't think people really pay him enough homage for the setting changing and taking leaps and bounds to represent our world. And if you watch his bookshelf tour that Joe Abercrombie has on YouTube, if you search for it, he talks about influences on his writing, and he talked about his motivation was that he was tired of reading fantasy worlds that were like 10 books long, and the world never advanced in technology. It never moved into the next era. It's just like, we're hitting each other with swords, and that's always how it's going to be. Like, they never introduced, you know, a cannon or something like that. So
you kind of have to strike a balance too, because sometimes it's like doing a time jump can make your story terrible.
Yes.
You kind of have to play with, you know, a time. So like Sanderson and Mistborn, like I have no love for Era 2 personally. Maybe I would if I reread it, but like I loved Era 1, and I think it's more so the setting, because I'm not much of like an Industrial Revolution, like guns kind of like reader, or like even gamer. Like I love Age of Empires, but I love like classic medieval Age of Empires. When you get to Age of Empires 3 and it's like muskets and shit, I'm just like, I don't care. Like my brain turns off. So it's like I'm sort of similar in that sense that like allomancy plus guns sounds really cool, but I wanted more of like the medieval, like in your face with daggers and just like slaughtering people with swords kind of Mistborn.
Yeah.
So like you have to strike that balance. And, you know, Pierce Brown in Red Rising sort of does it, where he goes from, it's like a 10-year jump, but then he like changes up like the POVs. So you're not just a single POV, you're multi POV, but the time gap is only 10 years. So, you know, the implications of the first trilogy are still very much going to be there at the start of the next one. Whereas like Era 1 to Era 2, I don't remember how many years, what was it, like 100 years or 1,000 years, whatever the time jump was, I don't remember. But it's like Era 1 is like done. And yes, there are things that come back in Era 2, but it's like it's almost an entirely new thing. And I don't know if that's what First Law does too, or it's like,
well, that's the thing. And this is beautiful, because we're talking about time jumps. Abercrombie makes you experience the eras.
Well, there you go.
And what I mean by that is we don't just jump in and we're in the Industrial Revolution. He shows you the pain. He shows you labor laws that need to be put in place. So like you're actually there when the world changes, not just, hey, we're new trilogy and here we are, you know, like if you, and that's why the standalones are so important. They're not really standalones. They're not really, because you should read them, because that you start seeing little hints at the world changing. And then when we land in the new trilogy and First Law, we're like, oh shit, we're in a new era. And if you have read along, you see that. So it's just cool to actually be there for the transition rather than just being thrown into it, which is kind of what you're describing. John Gwynn did a time jump, and without giving anything away, of Blood and Bone, the big difference you can see is that I thought magic was a lot more accessible in the second trilogy. And I really like that. And there were still consequences happening from stuff that happened in the quartet. But even then, I think for a time, not even a jump, but like a time transition, no one has done a better job than Joe Abercrombie. Not a
and I mean, I understand the critique too, because like Wheel of Time, I don't know the whole like timeline of start to finish, how many years end up passing. I can't imagine it's going to be that much time, because to that point, like you do stay sort of like in the same like era, I guess. But I could see that being an issue too, of like you read 14 of these books and then it's like, oh, well, that only took 3 years. It's like, wait, what? Like that entire thing. Like, I don't know if I'm throwing a number out there, but it's like that entire thing was that long. Like if you watch the show 24 back in the day, it was like each one of these episodes is an hour, and he's like kidnapped in China and wakes up in
it's ridiculous.
Like, it's only been an hour. How does this happen?
Yeah, that's actually really funny. That's a good comparison. We have gotten a lot of chatter here in the chat. definitely agreed with what you said, Alex, about how the magic didn't quite hit at the end. That's basically my only fault for the OG trilogy. I've actually talked to Christian about this, and I felt like it was a mockery of the big magic showdown at the end of fantasy books. I felt like Joe Abercrombie purposely, I don't want to say mucked it up, but he purposely made it kind of like, to comment on the fact of the big power up battle at the end.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. Maybe I'm putting plot armor on my.
I mean, if that's what he was going for, then props to him. But yeah, that was the weakest part easily for me in that trilogy was the magic, because it's more grounded and it's not really focused on magic. Like, yeah, you have Magi and Baez kind of just like blows people up every once in a while, but it's like there's no like magic system. It's not like pivotal to the plot until book 3, and then a lot of magic happens, and I was just kind of like,
yeah. So even if it was a commentary on the power up in fantasy, I could agree with all of that, and I think it's something that he didn't do as well as the people who influenced him. I think George R. R. Martin does a phenomenal job of giving magic a price, even without having a hard magic system. And it's something that Joe didn't, he kind of just shied away from it a bit. And, first time, I actually think it might've been his second time publishing, but it's something that I think he did a much better job of in the next trilogy. I think the magic's actually one of the brightest points of that trilogy. Black Storm asks, who is better? Sanderson? Yeah, exactly. You took the words out of my mouth. If we're talking about like plotting,
creating an overarching world that like intermingles with everything else he's ever written, probably Sanderson, because he creates the Cosmere.
I mean, his world building's
incredibly ambitious. Character work, I would probably still take Abercrombie, because as much as I love Stormlight Archive, and that's clearly Sanderson's best characters, I think Abercrombie just writes more interesting characters. But even like combat, like they're totally different. Like Stormlight or Mistborn, you're dealing with magic users. You're dealing with basically anime characters. Like Abercrombie is just, I don't want to say grounded, because it's not. Like Logan's not necessarily grounded in reality when the Bloody Nine comes out, but like it's a little bit more believable, until Baez just does magic. Like, I don't know. They're so different, man. They're totally different.
They're in different lanes. And I want to note, and I think this is amazing, they're actually good. I don't know if they're good friends, but they have a lot of respect for one another.
Yeah.
Whenever The Trouble with Peace came out, someone tweeted at him and said, "Oh, your book's coming on the same day as Rhythm of War." And he said, "What? Shit. Sanderson's like," he said, like, Sanderson's like a heavyweight or something. Like, he's fantastic. And he moved his book up 2 months.
He's the biggest name in fantasy. It's like when you read, I think the Burning God did the same thing. Yeah. It was like, you're going to come out right. Was it right? It's either right before or right after Rhythm of War. I'm like, just move it.
Yeah. And Fires of Vengeance.
Read the Burning God, because Rhythm of War comes out on like the same day.
Yeah. Fires of Vengeance came out too. Yeah.
Fires of Vengeance came out the week before, though.
It was a week
fast
before.
enough that you could read it.
That month was stacked.
It was insane.
Stacked. It was Fires of Vengeance, and then you're right, Burning God and Rhythm of War came out on the same day. And guess which one I read first? Rhythm of War. I liked Burning God more. That's probably
me too.
Yeah, it's probably not the most popular opinion on the internet, but it's true. But I thought Abercrombie putting that out there, like Sanderson's the best to do it right now, or so he said something along those lines. Move this book up 2 months, which shows him.
I would have too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous amount of respect and also a smart move by him.
Yeah.
But I've also seen before they are hanged on Brandon's shelf, like a special edition.
Nice.
And I just think that's really cool that two dudes that are doing something really different and approaching fantasy very differently are, apparently pals. So how cool is that? And if they can like each other, I think we could say we like
of course.
Both. So,
I mean, I'm sure they all respect each other. They all have a lot of the same influences, where they pull from.
Oh yeah.
Even though they end up writing drastically different things, but
yeah, they both love Terry Pratchett. Joe Abercrombie actually started one of the new books in the trilogy with a Pratchett quote. And I thought it was beautiful. I love it. We have people kind of agreeing, saying Abercrombie great at character work, Sanderson's better world, but I would agree with that. And to be fair, I don't think Sanderson necessarily, especially in Stormlight, I think he's done a very good job with his characters. Very, very good.
For sure.
So a lot of people kind of agreeing with the same things. Some people prefer characters and dialogues. Now, this is a question I always ask every guest. I've kind of already told my story. I can recap it a little bit. It was Lord of the Rings movies and such. I've kind of went over mine, but I want to hear how you got into fantasy, Alex. And if you could kind of give me a clue in of like why you got back into fantasy as an adult and what made you start your channel, because I think we have pretty similar paths.
Yeah, so if we're going like way, way back when I was like a kid, the first fantasy that I remember reading is the Magic Treehouse, which I like to talk about. Because like Scholastic book fairs, right, at elementary school, there's a series called the Magic Treehouse, and it's like I may be botching the actual plot of this, but I think it's a brother and sister, and they go to a treehouse and they basically like read different books and like go into that world. So that was just like a super cool concept where they're experiencing like all these different fantastic, like they go back to like the dinosaurs and they go back to like medieval age.
Oh, cool.
And so like all that stuff as a kid. And then I didn't read for a long time. And then when I was, young teen or just before, Harry Potter mostly. I grew up with Harry Potter, reading it, and then the movies came out, and I kind of like aged up with the characters of the movies because the actors were the same age. Yeah. So Harry Potter was a big influence just like on my childhood reading and watching the movies. Obviously, Lord of the Rings, I read it a long, long time ago. And then I more so am familiar with the movies at this point just because it's been so long since I read Lord of the Rings, but I do plan on rereading them. I plan on rereading a lot of things as an adult that I read as a child. Yes. But like, I loved Aragon when I was a teenager. At least the first two books, and then I randomly stopped reading them for literally no reason. I remember being horribly disappointed when a buddy of mine, we had both read Aragon in high school, and we went to like the midnight showing of the movie, and it was just a freaking train wreck. It was so bad. We were literally sitting in the back of the theater just like, what is happening?
Like hoping not to see anybody see you there kind of thing.
It was so bad. And then I maybe that killed it for me. I don't know. But that movie was terrible. Coming back to it though. So like Harry Potter and Aragon is like my earlier memories of actually reading and loving a lot of fantasy. Mm-hmm. When I came back, it was honestly like I hadn't read in a long time. I mostly play video games, which I still do, but I read a lot more now than game. And I happened to be on YouTube just kind of like watching random stuff. And I found Daniel's channel at some point. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, this is a thing. Like people cover, fantasy books.
Look at these nerds.
Yeah. Right. So I was just looking for something. I just kind of got like an itch to read again. And I found out about Sanderson and Mistborn. And that's sort of when I guess like between just kind of wanting to get back into reading and then finding that BookTube sort of existed. It got me into like, okay, well, what's popular? Like, what is everybody talking about? It was like Wheel of Time, everything Sanderson wrote, whatever else they were talking about at the time. I don't remember. It was over a year ago.
The Song of Ice and Fire, probably still.
Probably, because everyone will never, ever stop talking about the Song of Ice and Fire. I don't know. It was also coming off of like Game of Thrones, like the show being so good, and like ended up reading, some of the books again and just kind of like slowly getting my way back into reading. Mostly because of TV and movies, I guess. But that sort of got me back into it. And that's what led into me just starting to read a lot more. And when I ended up starting my channel was I had just finished Era 1. And I saw other people like doing these videos. And I was watching a lot of like smaller booktubers and people starting this. I was like, I could do this. I can talk to a camera.
Better than these people.
And I was dog shit. I couldn't sit in front of I would turn on the camera and I would just be like,
I do remember it seemed you were uncomfortable.
I was super uncomfortable and I was trying to script things because I was like, what do I say? I was like, I need to talk about this. And so like I would have a script up and it took forever. I didn't know how to edit anything. Recording on my phone, like I kept having corrupted files because I wasn't recording in like a solid FPS. So when I would put it in like an editing software, it was like, it didn't like the variable FPS. So it would just like, the file wouldn't work. And I was just like, what do I do? And then I finally just started, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to keep making videos because I just wanted to. And I was like, other people are doing this and I can definitely do it. So that was kind of like why I started. And hopefully I'm much better now than I was,
Much
because
better. I mean,
those videos were terrible.
the biggest evolution of your channel for me, because I've been watching you since really the beginning, is
I'm sorry.
no, it's good because I've had the opportunity to watch your personality not develop because you already had it, but to start coming through in your videos.
Dude,
Because you,
I literally couldn't talk. I would look at a camera and I was just like, I would start. I do this much less now, but when I first started, I would literally stop like every couple minutes and what the am I saying? Like
I did the same thing
the entire time. I would just lose my train of thought, and I'm sitting here looking at notes like, oh, God, this sounds so bad.
I remember shooting my first video, which is should you still read A Song of Ice and Fire, basically after season 8 or whatever. And I remember I think the video is 8 minutes. I think I had over an hour and a half of footage, and multiple times I stare in the camera. I go, "Am I sure I want to do this?" Like I'm putting myself out there for scrutiny, you know. And it was already a hot topic. I knew people were gonna tell me I was dumb, and you know, I'm glad I stuck with it, you know, because I ended up making a lot of good friends and I'm having fun doing this. But I think everybody goes through that. And your videos have gotten so much better, obviously. And you have a lot of personality and you're a smart guy. And it's just so funny that it just took a little bit to get you out of your shell. And now look at you, you know, you're doing awesome. You're doing splendid.
Thank you. That's what I tell people now is like because I've directly, I will take credit for this. I've directly influenced the few people starting a channel because I'm just like, dude, go watch my old videos.
Jake Bishop.
They're shit. Like, go watch it. You'll feel better about yourself. Just start your channel because people will reach out and be like, oh, how did you start? Or like, should I start a channel? I kind of want to. I'm like, then just do it. Like, just put yourself out there. It's going to be crap, probably. That's fine. Just make videos. And if you want to talk. Like, people will be there to watch and you'll get better. You'll get more comfortable. And I was lucky enough to, I guess it was because it was Mistborn that Elliot saw my channel and was like one of my first people that I met online, and like became Instagram friends. And I was just like, yo, Elliot Brooks is like talking to me. This is super cool. And because I was just like, she has a big channel. I don't know. This is cool.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And you know, one of the coolest things is the community, which is why I started doing this chatting with nuts thing, because I just want to talk to more people in the community and get more experience. One thing I kind of want to note on, and I've been having like this feeling about this for a while. I thought about actually even making a video on it, but I'll just talk about it here. This is another reason why I do this, because some things I'd rather just talk about than make a edited video. But it's so interesting that I knew to ask you about coming back to fantasy. And I basically have said that to every single person, but to make it more broad, I don't believe that, because you're what, 28-ish, right? You're young, right? You're 30. Okay, we're both 30. This is perfect.
I'm the 30. I'm one of the olds now.
I think basically anywhere between 20 to like 30. It doesn't really matter.
I still get carded at R-rated movies every once in a while, so it's fine.
Well, you look young in a good way. So I think it's a broader thing. It's not coming back to fantasy. It's coming back to reading, because we have went through this really interesting point where we had one of, you know, at our age, right? We had Harry Potter, which is huge. Aragon. I didn't read it. Aragon, huge, right? Lord of the Rings movies came out. There's like this big pop to like get into books, but then we went through like the golden age of video games. We went to, and then, you know, Netflix and these things. It's just like entertainment hit a golden age. And like not just entertainment, but media in general, and kind of left books a little behind.
Reading wasn't even like a thought to me for a long time, especially from like high school through college, because it was like school, football, it's late at night, I'm gaming, and I played WoW for a decade. Like that consumed a lot of my life. I didn't have time for reading because I was leading raids. So.
Yeah, so I think like it's just really interesting, and I think it says a lot as a society and kind of media in general that we push into, again, this golden age and the things that, like, I mean, we had cell phones, people, like we didn't have those. What now? About 10 years, a little longer than that now, probably about 15 years ago, we didn't have that, right? So all your time is being taken. You're becoming addicted to social media, and now it is becoming a little bit of it's not as nuanced to pick up a book. It's actually a somewhat of a relief for people. And I
Yeah.
think now that we've kind of settled into what we are doing, cell phones aren't increasing as much as they were. We're all kind of used to Netflix. We're used to these video games to the point now where people switch to a new game every week. I think books are on a comeback, and you can see it with
Yeah, for
bookstore
sure.
numbers. Book sales are up. John Gwynn's community, I've literally watched it build, and I think this
Yeah.
is going to be a very special time. Like, I think publishers are catching up to the curve, and
Yeah, for sure.
they're using the technology now to aid a new generation of reading. And I think reading it's at its golden age. It's going to be in the
Yeah.
coming years.
But like Christian just said in chat too, because like audiobooks help with that too. So like
Yeah.
technology has made reading so accessible because you can use Libby, you can use Scribd, you can use all these different websites to just borrow books, audiobooks or otherwise. Everybody's got Kindles. You have a Kindle app on your phone. Like I can lay in bed and read a book. You don't have to buy physical. You can listen to a book. Like there's so much accessibility to it now that there's no reason not to, really.
Yeah.
And the thing that always sticks with me is, because I'm a culprit of this, is just mindlessly scrolling Twitter and Reddit and just doing shit that means nothing. And it's like, yeah, just imagine the every couple of minutes that you spend, like every 30 minutes, you're just like, oh, what's on Reddit? And you're there for 5-10 minutes. It's like you could just be reading a book, and then all of a sudden you're reading 50 pages of a book in a day,
and it's probably not pissing you off as much.
Well, there's that too.
No, I actually, people ask me to say, how did you like get kind of efficient at reading? I read a lot, but it's like, dude, every time I want to pick up my phone, I put it down and I pick up my book. That is what I do now. I'm actually on my phone a lot more now during the pandemic, and since I joined your Discord server, like literally, I avoided Discord for the longest time because I knew it'd be a distraction. But it got to the point where like I wasn't even able to talk enough on my channel. I still needed more interaction, right?
Yeah.
And I was pretty selective with the Discords I joined. So I joined 2 really good ones. But, for the most part, if I want to pick up my phone, I pick up my book instead. And it has paid off tremendously. I want to give Danny Matson a huge thank you. I've never actually had a super sticker or super chat on here before. So you're the first, and I appreciate it tremendously. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We have so many chats, my friend, of people and thinking what we're talking about. Someone said, did I miss any Pratchett talk? You did a little bit earlier.
We could always go back. It was pretty brief.
Yeah, I mean, we can absolutely do that because he's read Mort, and now I'm almost done.
I've only read 2, so I mean, I can't talk about Pratchett that much.
I mean, the thing I would say about Pratchett is I didn't know what to expect other than I was going to have a good time. And I have a hard time putting Mort down so far. And I did not stop smiling.
I mean, even like I laughed out loud several times in Mort. Yeah. Just even like the scenario that you're in. It's just like when you sit back and think about just how absurd some of the shit is, it's just so good. And Pratchett's writing is so smart, and he's just he's funny and intelligent, and you can just see it in his writing. And what I love, I want you to read Guards, because Guards is like even more hilarious. Just everything about the premise and the setup of like who the characters are, what they look like, the world that they're in is just completely absurd. I mean, Mort is absurd to begin with. Like this guy's at a job fair, and the Grim Reaper shows up to like give him a job as his apprentice, and then he has to like basically substitute as the Grim Reaper because he's like out for a while. It's like just everything about that is just fantastic. But yeah. I mean, Pratchett's great, man.
I thought that it was just going to be like Mort was, death right off the bat. I didn't realize that like we are with death, but like we're with his apprentice.
Yeah.
And it's just like
more than it is the Reaper, man.
Yeah. And do you feel like, Mort is, these aren't really spoilers, but Mort is considered by his family to be stupid and kind of like a dunce. But like, do you feel like he's actually the smart one and his family was really stupid? I
mean, they might just be sort of oblivious, but maybe.
Yeah, I felt like he didn't fit in with them, so they thought he was like, broken or something. And it's like he actually seems pretty smart.
He is.
And everyone keep calling him boy instead of Mort. And then I'm just like, I know I'm only talking.
So good.
He's talking to himself. He's like, I know I'm talking to myself because I'm the one that calls myself Mort.
It's so good. It's like a Monty Python movie where it's like there's like recurring joke just over and over again, just keeps coming back, and it's always funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I absolutely love it. Um, I'm looking through here. Some people were talking about Dark Tower. Just to put it out there, I am loving Dark Tower. I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't like Gunslinger the first time I ever read it. It was
Had
amazing.
you read any King before?
Yes, I had. I'd read The Stand, a lot of short stories,
Yeah.
and I've done a bunch of other stuff. Let's see, Salem's Lot, Pet Cemetery, and I read it when I was very young. Oh, hey, look this! Your guest is hot.
I didn't write that. I don't know what happened.
Alex,
I think I got hacked.
I don't even know what to say. I forgot those were turned on. I'm going to be honest. So thank you very much.
I was just testing out the system.
Well, I appreciate it. I owe you a coffee. My mom says Jimmy always liked to read.
There you go.
Mom, do you remember whenever I went to check out It by Stephen King when I was 11 and the library made me ask you if it was okay and I had to call you from the library and then you were like, yeah, it's fine. Which, by the way, it wasn't.
Not fine at all. Did you get through it at 11? Because that's impressive.
I did not get all the way to the end. I read like a lot of it and then I stayed up for 2 nights in a row because the book scared me more than the movie did. We have a pup in the background. What's your pup's name?
Yeah. This one's, which way should I turn?
That's
Loki. That's my Australian Shepherd. Say hi, Loki. Come here. Come here.
Loki. Danny Matson
being lazy. Come here.
500 super sticker. Thank you so much, Danny. I really appreciate that. Just so you guys know, everything I get from this channel revenue wise goes directly back into it, whether it's buying books or buying new audio equipment and stuff like that.
Oh, you're being lazy, really? He's just gonna roll over on the floor. Okay.
I might buy Loki a dog toy.
Okay.
Happy chatting, guys. Got a 3-year-old yelling at me.
Floor.
Just wanted to show my support. Hey, I appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much.
Luckily, my kids are asleep.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot you said bedtime was around 7, so I'm glad that went well. There's my mom reaffirming the Stephen King story where I had to have her tell the librarian it was okay for me to check out it at the age of 11.
That reminds me of because I used to work at GameStop. It was like my first job, and having to be like, "Ma'am, this game is rated M for mature." Well, what does that mean? I was like, "Well, you murder a lot of people. It's really bloody. Here's all the stuff your kid's about to do." They're like, "Yeah, it's fine." Like, your kid's 12, man. Come on.
I'm gonna be honest. My mom and dad. The first movie I remember watching was Nightmare on Elm Street. I think I was 6. Like I never had a filter.
That is definitely fitting for a child.
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise that I grew up to go into professional wrestling for 8 years. So
there you go.
Raj, hi Raj. Raj asks, so who do you like better, BTK or your own podcast? Meaning Bend the Knee. I would probably go with Bend the Knee over my own podcast. They have really.
I didn't know what was happening. I was like, who BTK? Is that like a
the
K-pop
BTK killer? You know. So dark side or the light? Now this is a good question, and I'm actually gonna. I know you're probably talking Star Wars, but I'm gonna ask Alex a very important question about Wheel of Time.
Sure.
Have you figured out why people want to be dark friends in the Wheel of Time? Like why, like, you know, anyone could be a dark friend, but like, I haven't figured out why yet. Have you?
Like, what would the benefit be?
Not just the benefit, but like, I never feel like I get a motivation. Like
not really. I mean, they're just, I could have missed it, but to me, they're just kind of like, they're the bad guys. That's just like, okay.
And for me, it kind of, you know, it feels like, coming from other series where there's like a lot of motivations and that kind of adds like a gray element, right? To a lot of our characters or plot or whatever. And I feel like Wheel of Time, like the dark friend thing is just like comes out of nowhere. And it's like,
I think they're just agents of the dark one. I don't really know unless I missed something or didn't pay enough attention. I'm kind of with you. I don't think there's a lot of like reasoning behind it. Whereas in like John Gwynn's books, for example, you know damn well why people are on one side or the other. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that I also appreciate is whenever someone just says, hey, this is black and white. It's good and evil. Like there's no in between here. You know, I think that kind of thing goes a long way with me just because everyone's tried to do the A Song of Ice and Fire great character thing to a point.
Yeah.
And it's relieving to know who to hate.
Yeah.
It's relieving. And I love it. I call it fist pumping fantasy. Because
you know because in the Banished Lands, and we actually talked about this in our discussions that we had as like our group thing that we did, was a lot of the characters are almost by circumstance sort of leaning towards the bad guys, and then they get to the point where it's like they're teetering on either like, well, should I be good or not? And then it's just like, nah, like I've gone too far. I'm going to see this through and do terrible crap because that's the way to, get to the point that I need to get to. Whereas dark friends and the Wheel of Time are just like, she's a dark friend. That's a bad guy. It's like, good. We're
Surprise. Good. And I like the idea of it. I guess like that they're being the secret society or something. I just kind of wish it was maybe more POVs from that side would make it better. But that was something that really stuck with me in Fires of Heaven because of something that happens. And I was just like, oh, that person's a dark friend. Go figure.
There you go. Okay. Brent joined chat and said that they're dark friends because they're promised power or immortality.
Okay. That's fair. And I do remember the immortality portion, but I guess I still would like to see maybe a character's POV where they struggle with that decision. Right?
Like, you don't just want like endless garbage POVs that don't go anywhere and don't matter.
But they were in a circus, Alex. They were in a
listen.
Nieves joined a circus, and I didn't get any Moraine chapters or anything.
The circus is the tip of the iceberg in the garbage lane of what is in Wheel of Time.
Yeah,
you'll get, if you keep reading, you'll get to a certain bowl that everybody likes to talk about that is not fun to read about.
Lily has a good question, and this is another one I was going to ask you. So what does your reading schedule look like? Do you try to set a certain amount of books per month, or what does it look like?
Yeah, so when I started last year, it was just reading as much as I can, and I kind of stopped. I mean, I'm still sort of this way. I've turned it back recently just because I realized I can't keep up with as much as I was trying to read. Mm-hmm. I tend to read at night because that's when my kids are in bed. During the day, even when they're at daycare, like I'm really busy with work. So generally I don't get to read a lot during the day, maybe a little bit here and there. I audiobook when I'm sort of in the car, either taking or picking them up from daycare at my parents' house, because that's there and back is about an hour or so. So that gives me some audiobook time. Usually though at night, like right now from 7 to 11-ish is when like I would have reading time, but I'm also filming videos and doing other things like that. So usually at night, I try to read around 100 pages or so a day.
Yeah.
Totally hit or miss if that happens or not. But when I started last year, I was trying to hit like 5-6 books a month, and I just can't really keep up with it unless all of my free time is going to reading. So I do about 4 right now, unless I finish sort of early, then I'll fit in something smaller like a Dresden book or Discworld, or like I squeezed in Murderbot one day because it was a novella. It's really easy to get through. But my sweet spot's about 4 books, and that's mostly because I'm doing Wheel of Time, and they're huge. So if I was reading a bunch of sci-fi books or smaller books, I could get through a lot more books. But epic fantasy is not small, and it's not a light read usually. So those can be like 8 to 10 days, depending on how long they are. Like
it's funny.
The Blackest Heart, I'm getting through somewhat quickly because 1, I have it on Kindle, and I also have the audiobook. But if I were to just sit down and try to read this every night, like some days I'm just too tired and I can't even sit down and read. So audiobook maybe, or I mean, there was a solid week or so where when we first moved in, I barely read at all because we were exhausted getting the house set up. Our kids weren't sleeping. It was tough.
When we moved into this house, I was in the middle of Way of Kings, and it couldn't have went any better because you can really read a chapter a night kind of thing of Way of Kings. And I think that's why because I remember you being like, man, I'm like 40% of this book and Callan's just crying a lot. Like we need to move the plot along. And I don't think I had that experience because I was just kind of experiencing like a chapter at a time, right? Like I took my time with that book and it ended up paying off. But I am so impressed with how many books you're able to read with 2 kids and then, with moving and then working a full-time job. Like it's really impressive. I aim for 3 books. That's the thing.
Yeah.
3 books are my minimum. And it's crazy because me and you both say 100 pages a day, right? But then you look at a Stormlight book and you go, that's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And that's saying that you hit all 100 pages.
Yeah. I mean, that's why my normal average, I would tend to look at the page count and then be like, okay, that generally equates to how long it's going to take me to read.
Yeah.
But I knew like Gardens of the Moon, the trade paperback is, I don't even know. Where is it?
think it's 600 pages, right?
It's 600-ish pages, but it's the trade paperback. The text is tiny, and there's so many words on each page. I did not read that book in 6 days. It took 10 probably, which is more realistic. But yeah, like Stormlight books, 2 weeks generally.
Yeah.
But like a Discworld book,
2 days.
like it's a mass market that's 300 pages long. There's not that much text on the page itself. Like that's not going to even take me 3 days. That might take me a day and a half or 2 days. But it's sometimes I read like 30 pages in a day because I'm either not in the mood to read or I'm tired and just don't really want to do anything or just go hang out or like watch TV or something. It's just, that's what I try to aim for. But
there's also just authors I can't read 100 pages a day. And honestly, this is what I kind of realized with Wheel of Time. And that's why I really like the Heroes of the Horn podcast. And
it's a lot.
Yeah, I enjoy a slower, methodical pace with Wheel of Time because then it's background noise. And I still love the lore of Wheel of Time. I love the world building. I think the ambition of that series is possibly the most ambitious thing I've ever seen. Maybe Stormlight will pass it.
It will.
Yeah, I think so.
As far as like an ambition standpoint of even Malazan, probably to a degree. Yeah. I've only read one book, but just like the scope of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember when I read Rhythm of War, even though I was mostly positive on it, but I did have some criticisms. Mm-hmm. I remember talking to Petrick and I said, man, this is the most ambitious series I've ever read. I said, this is just crazy how much work's being put into this. And he said, wait till you read Malazan. But what he did tell me is he feels like Malazan is the most wide, but Stormlight's the most deep. And and I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because Wheel of Time, like it's ambitious in the sense that it's really, really long. Yeah. But it's not like the scope of the world is all that crazy because the world is not like, it's not the Cosmere. You're not creating the like world jumpers and different,
it's the MCU
interminglings of characters from series that all sort of tie in, whether, loosely or directly or otherwise. And Malazan is literally creating like a world. So it's just the sheer scope of it is ambitious in itself. So that's probably more where that comes from. Wheel of Time is ambitious in just its length and carrying you through the story of like the main characters that you follow, but like how deep Wheel of Time is more of like what some people like in Discord will argue is nonsense and stuff that you shouldn't care about or focus on. But it's like, that's just RJ's writing style is he wanted so much to focus on like the descriptive nature of like, this is what everything looks like. This is what clothes look like. This is what the setting looks like. Re-explaining the magic system 150,000 times. Like everything is like, this is just building this world to make it more realized, but then also throwing in like 3,000 named characters that probably don't matter in the end. But
yeah, I find the character descriptions to be where I kind of teeter out of his prose. The one thing I actually love his scene setting. I know a lot of people get really annoyed by it, but I love that stuff. Like I'm in. For sure. Tad Williams does that a lot. And for me, I'm not a visual reader. Now, I will say I felt like I had trouble picturing things that were happening in book 4 and 5 of the Wheel of Time for whatever reason, because I did feel like after book 3, the writing kind of changed a little bit. Like, I don't know what it was, but like we got to a bigger story. Like it felt like it really opened up after book 3.
It does.
And I've had trouble since then trying to imagine everything. I think it's maybe just the way the POVs are split and stuff, but
that's probably part of it. I mean, I called RJ the Bob Ross of fantasy when I reviewed Eye of the World because he was really good at setting a scene of like, here's what the forest looks like that you're walking into.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
I love it.
The man who called himself Boar. That prologue can die in a fire.
Do you not like the prologue?
That the man who calls himself Boar, Boars or whatever, that entire prologue, I was just like, who cares? This character is so unimportant. I don't care at all.
Oh man. Oh, I love it. Right here we have Ranch saying, I mean, I might not like the overly descriptive nature, but RJ's character arcs are very well written and constructed. I mean, I think you have to appreciate someone that can maintain character arcs and be consistent over 14 books. I will say there are some things about his characters that drive me insane.
I would agree with the character arcs so far that like characters that I didn't really care for in the first couple of books have grown a lot over the series. And then the characters that I did like initially got even better. So I definitely appreciate that. I think what you're alluding to is just not necessarily the character arcs, but just certain characteristics of people, and or just like how people view other races and sexes in the world. It's like they kind of seem to not ever evolve out of that, and that doesn't seem to go away. At least so far, it hasn't for me.
Yeah, there are certain accents on the writing that can grate me, which is why, it's just one of those series that I'm going to read over a long period of time, and I think that's fine. I'm not too bummed out about that, as long as I can avoid spoilers on Goodreads. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Headcanon said something, and I wanted to point it out. He said, "I really don't visualize books, especially how characters looks. I didn't even realize that Kelsier was blonde until I saw art of him." This is a funny interaction I have with John Gwynn on Twitter. I thought Maquin was bald.
So did I.
Yeah, and he's like he like commented on it. So if someone had posted a picture of Maquin from Faith on the Fall, like fan art, and I commented, and I was like, "Oh, we thought he was bald," and someone else said it too. And now it's funny to hear that you thought that. And then John like was like, "No, you idiot!" He didn't call me an idiot, but he was like, "No, I said he had hair," and I'm like, "Nah, he's bald."
Yeah, I mean, for me though, I guess it kind of depends. So like well, to be fair, a lot of the Faithful and the Fallen, he doesn't describe characters all that much. So like I glossed over any description that did exist.
Yeah.
But even when there is like specific, here's what the character looks like, even for me, I generally forget, and I just kind of picture whatever I'm picturing in my mind, and that's just what it is to me. I've gotten to like, I'll picture a character one way, and then I see the description, I'm just like, nah, that's not what they look like. It's just like, keep going.
Yeah, some books I can visualize a lot, and I feel like this is strange. Sometimes the authors that give me the least, I can imagine the most. Joe Abercrombie, for whatever reason, when I read Joe Abercrombie, I can imagine everything. I don't know what it is about his writing. Tad Williams does a lot of description, and I get a lot out of that. And someone asked for a Bennebeck shout out, which is from Memory Sorrow Thorn. Absolutely, Bennebeck is the best companion. He's pretty amazing. I still don't know if Glotka has,
right? At least the main art that everybody passes around.
I think he might have like a couple stray hairs where like he's hanging on, like where everyone's got that friend.
I mean, there's like the one picture that everybody always pulls up is like when he's like this and he's got his cane and he's bald.
Yeah, I think of the cane. Andrew says I feel like Glock has a few pieces. Yeah, I'd like to think he does.
Yeah.
I kind of picture him as the Tales from the Crypt guy,
a little, some stringy hairs just hanging out there.
The skullet,
Yeah, the skullet.
Yeah.
Apparently he's not, Brent.
Tweet at John Gwynn and ask him. Oh man, it was so funny to see John's reaction. Like, what do you guys mean he's bald? Like, I wrote the damn books, guys, and I'm like, nah, he's bald, dude. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. That was one of the biggest complaints people had about those books, though, is that you have no idea what people look like.
See, that doesn't actually bother me, and not saying that.
Anyway. Yeah, it didn't take away from anything.
Yeah, I think it's a fair criticism to be fair, but it doesn't bother me at all. I would rather John Gwynn gets more out of a page of text than any other author in the genre. Easily. I mean, there's no one more efficient with his time and my time and paper space, all of it. He's amazing. He's saving trees and still telling better stories than people are putting out 900-page books. I'm telling you. John, hire me on your PR campaign.
They're good, man. They're really good. That's why we're like, they're random Discord user that isn't around anymore, but she just outwardly hated everything about John Gwynn for literally no reason and said that like his writing was terrible, the books are trash. And I'm just like, the only thing you like is The Witcher. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. What? Yeah. I mean, I'm okay with people not because some people really don't like the pace, right? Like they don't want that fast pace. I still think he does a tremendous job of development.
So do I.
With that pace, and that's the secret sauce. I mean, that's why John Gwynn's in business right now.
That's why it's impressive, because the books don't let up, but you still, I am more attached to a lot of the characters in the Banished Lands than a lot of other series. They're right. So good. There's not like I'm never bored during any of the POVs.
Nope.
I don't get to a chapter. I'm like, really? We have to talk about this person. unless it's like, I hate this person, but he like his villains are really good. It's just everything he does is great.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think he's special. I think like whenever you talk about people who stand out in the genre, and Daniel Green's review today, he said it in The Shadow of the Gods, which, we've been saying it for a long time, but to hear someone who has an audience that size, you know, put John Gwynne over and say like, this is like an example of fantasy when people want to read, like he's one of the people I always point people towards because he's just a non-reader can get a lot of enjoyment out of him while still getting pieces of like literary elements that make good stories. And I think it can broaden people out into bigger things also. Like, I think it's a really good starting point.
I recommend him to everybody. He's probably my favorite fantasy writer at the moment.
It is hard for me to not put him like, I mean, he's top 3 easily, but at any day he could be number 1 any day. I feel like Glocka has a few pieces calm over, and then he follows it up with, for some reason, I imagine he takes pride in what little hair Glocka. That is a pretty good description of Glocka. I think that's pretty consistent. I'm with you guys. I picture who I'm going to picture. Yeah, like I don't picture Bran in A Song of Ice and Fire like Bran from the show at all. And I've also have grown to feel like Arya looks a lot different. And then I've talked about it before, but I also picture Tyrion completely differently.
Well, I mean, because Tyrion is different. He's like disgusting in the book.
Yeah, and he's shorter. He's even shorter than
Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, Peter Dinklage.
And they weren't going to make Peter Dinklage look disgusting.
Yeah, you can. He's a handsome fellow.
They gave him a little cut across his nose. It's like, oh my God, don't look at me.
Everyone in fantasy is described extremely old, and it turns out they're 30.
Right? That's true.
Dude, this is something I did have an issue with in Farseer.
I know. I just read Assassin's Apprentice, and they were talking about how old Verity was, and he's like 33. I'm like, really?
They made it sound like Burrich was on death's door.
Right?
And you'll see. I'm just like, oh, he's not at all. He's like me.
Yeah.
To be fair,
we are one foot in the grave. Jimmy.
Apparently.
We're 30. We're almost there.
I won't be visiting the 6 duchies because they're ages.
We're running out of time. I mean, to be fair, Assassin's Apprentice starts with Fitz he's 6. I don't even know how old he is at the end of the book.
Yeah, I think he's. I actually don't. I think 6. That sounds right.
Pretty sure that's when it starts. But
yeah.
I don't know how old he is by the end of it. A teenager, maybe.
Let's go with like 13, 14. Actually, yeah.
Sure. That works.
I feel like that's right. I'm reading Rage of Dragons, but all I think about is starting Ruin. Oh man, Ruin could have
They're both good. Ruin is a much better book than Rage of Dragons.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about this a bit. So one of the books that me and you both read and reviewed around the same time, I believe, is Rage of Dragons. Rage of Dragons is the first review on my channel that started to actually get, and when I say traction, I mean like 200 views. I was going ape shit. I was like, oh my God, I made it. We both read Rage of Dragons. We both loved it.
Yep.
How has your opinion changed on Rage of Dragons over the last year and a half?
Not really.
Okay.
I still love it. And I loved Fires of Vengeance as well. And I think he grew as a writer in a lot of it. But like, I guess I'm more open to people's criticisms of Rage of Dragons. And I can kind of look back and agree and sort of laugh at how silly some of it is. But like, it doesn't make me like the book any less. I totally get the criticisms. I'm like, yeah, that's true. Like, Tao's a moron. I totally get it. Like, he's really hard to root for. Or like when Alan brings up the dual wielding thing, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Someone before Tao probably would have picked up 2 swords and tried it. But it's like most people's complaints, just like they're things that didn't bother me or I don't think is worth being bothered about for the most part. So I'm just like, it doesn't really detract from it for me.
I'm with you. So
I've battled for that book for months now between World Hoppers and everything else. Just like everyone's like, hey, Alex likes this book. Let's have somebody tell you it sucks so we can talk about it.
Yeah, you're definitely been the shield and sword for that book. I try. I've seen it happen. And it's made, people that I really like and, we get along and we have similar opinions. They've absolutely hated it.
Yeah.
And there's a few things about Rage of Dragons, and I like what you said. My enjoyment of it never changed. I had such a blast reading that book, and I went back and read through it before Fires of Vengeance, and I still really liked it. As I've grown and read more things, I now see some issues with the writing, I would say. But at the end of the day, it's about enjoyment. And
Yeah,
I
if you enjoyed the
still
book, that's what matters.
like. I
I
think
read
I
that
would.
book in like 2 days because I couldn't put it down.
Yes, and that brings me to my next point. I have never had a book, never, that I've recommended more to people who don't read
Yeah.
that end up loving 100%. I think I'm at least 6 people that I've recommended it to, and every one of them's like, this book is sick. And they bought Fire's Vengeance the day it
Because
came
it's like
out.
an action movie.
Yes, and
It's just relentless, like scene to scene. There's no time gaps, really. It's just like you're literally running from one page to the next page, and it just keeps going.
yeah, and I think, bringing up some of the issues with the writing or whatever, like that is all valid, but
Yeah.
there's something to be said when something just works.
Mm-hmm.
I say the same thing about Mistborn. I'm not the biggest Mistborn fan, but it works. It definitely works. I mean, a lot of people like it, and I think it's awesome. But to imagine Tao, coming around with a demon and, 2 dual
Yeah.
wields. I mean, everyone's like, oh, he's so Fire's of Vengeance. All I heard, he's so OP. He is.
He is. And it's fun.
It's so fun. It's so fun to not have the baby face, as we call it in professional wrestling, get beat up the whole time. It's so cool to see someone that did grind, by the way. Like his OP-ness has come at the cost.
Demons
yes,
ever.
Like there was a cost to being OP, and now it's showing you that being the baddest man on the planet isn't always the easiest thing in the world. I don't know. I loved it, and I thought Fires of Vengeance was even better, but it only was as good as it was because Rage of Dragons had all the training scenes, and I know some people aren't into that, but for me,
I loved it.
Oh, I absolutely loved it, and I know Evan Winters is a jiu-jitsu practitioner like me, so I saw some of like the training, like being, sharpening your skills. I saw what he was getting after, and I really connected with it. But I was very curious to see what you thought, because I feel like that's a book that kind of blew up, and then there was a big like negative wave after it. Kind of like, what's the what's the hype?
I think it was because initially because I found it sort of like randomly. I was back when I traveled for work before, the pandemic happened. I was in Minnesota, and I went to a bookstore because I was at a hotel, and I was like, I just want to grab some books while I'm here. So I went to a bookstore, and that was one of the books that I bought just because it looked cool. And then I started seeing some stuff online about how like he self-published it, and then it got picked up and redistributed by Orbit. And I was just like, all right, let me give this a shot. And I just flew through it, and I was like, this is incredible. I loved it. It was relentless. It was like, I love war and fantasy. I love battles, and it was an action movie. I mean, it's like you set it up, and then it's like, okay, Tao is fighting for the rest of the book. And that's just what I loved it. It was refreshing. Like the setting was new. The magic system, the way that was set up with Isihogo is totally different than anything that I had read. So it was right up my alley. And then, I feel like because like Daniel and Murphy and like big booktube channels all talked about it and praised it, and everybody sort of loved it. And then you're right, there was like a wave afterwards of like a bunch of people saying it was garbage. And then I've just been out here fighting the good fight for 6 months or whatever, just telling everybody how good it was.
Yeah, Ian says he's 250 in, and he said he's not sold.
I mean, no book is going to click with everybody, right? Like,
it's true.
I love relentless action and nonstop sword fighting, and I'm fine with him being overpowered. I get it. Like, it makes the book fun. Like, it's like turning on a cheat code and just jumping into combat and just murdering everybody.
Going into Skyrim on God mode. Exactly. I mean, we've all done it.
It's fun. I don't take it seriously. I treat it like an action movie.
Yes.
And it was fun.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that, like, you kind of talked about expectations with Assassin's Apprentice earlier. Mm-hmm. And I think that there are a lot of false expectations on Rage of Dragons because for whatever reason, someone said Game of Thrones meets Gladiator.
Yeah.
And I said in my review, I said, why? You don't need to say that. Like, just let it stand on its own.
Books is the only reason. There is nothing A Song of Ice and Fire about that book.
No, other than the fact that you can die. I mean, that's really what they should say is high stakes. That's all they should say.
I see the Gladiator parallels more, but even that, like, it's a totally different thing. It's just say it's a revenge tale. Like that's you don't need to compare it to. I mean, everything gets compared to A Song of Ice and Fire because people know Game of Thrones, and that's. I mean, look at The Expanse. It's like A Song of Ice and Fire meets Star Wars or whatever it says. What does it say?
It's so not like Star Wars. Oh my God.
It says something about Good old Germ. Where is it?
Well, I think that makes
he's on the cover.
I'll tell you why that makes a little more sense is because both the authors are Gurm's assistants.
Sure, but okay, science fictional equivalent of A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, not really. Not really.
Just like because there's politics?
Yeah,
like,
I think
is everyone on the ship gonna murder each other, or like are they vying to control the command center?
I think the only similar equal is that there is a lot of intrigue and dialogue.
Sure.
But it's the existential threat, maybe.
I don't know. I'm starting this next month. I haven't read it yet, but
wait, you've read Leviathan Wakes, right?
Nope. I'm starting it next month.
Dude, I'm gonna have you on for a spoiler discussion. I'll get Sandra Gibbons. She's a huge fan of The Expanse, and I really like her channel. We should do something for that because
for sure.
Well, as long as you like it, I love it. I think it's one of the best book ones I've read. Like I love it. And you're wanting to get into more sci-fi. You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I keep growing because I've read all of Red Rising. I've read Dune. I've read, Ready Player One, Ender's Game. Don't mind me. I'm just looking right at my books right here. No, I did I put a poll out for my Patreon of what to buddy read next month, and The Expanse won. So I'm at least going to read the first one, if not the whole thing. But I wanted to start with that. So
yeah, man. Have you ever watched the show? You've never watched it? Okay, the show is phenomenal.
I've been told. I don't really watch so much TV anymore, just because I'm either gaming or reading, and it's like I don't want to sit down and watch a show and not do the other one. So yeah,
it's really hard for me to sit down with a show. I will say I'm giving Shadow and Bone a shot on Netflix. I just watched episode 1 and it was really good. I had no idea what was going on, so I had to like Google everything. But
just watch Alan's trailer reaction. He'll tell you exactly what's happening.
Dude, that was so funny. Are you gonna watch Shadow and Bone, or are you off?
I don't care.
I think I'm interested, one, because it's fantasy, and two, I like to at least give it a shot, just to support it. You know what I mean? Just to support it and to kind of give I don't know, a good go for the team, I guess you could say. Someone could watch the Wheel of Time show will be called a Game of Thrones clone, even though Wheel of Time is older. That's gonna happen.
Of course it is.
I think within a season that'll fall off. I don't think you have to worry about that because they're so very different.
But like even as much as I like Wheel of Time, I'm not like over the moon about the Wheel of Time show because I'm setting my expectations low just because every fantasy show that comes out now is going to be compared to Game of Thrones. And if it's not season 1 Game of Thrones, everyone's going to hate it. So
I think that's pretty fair, actually.
Yeah.
Sarah says it looks good quality wise. Shadow and Bone. Yeah. The cinematography in episode 1 was phenomenal. I mean, I was really blown away by it. I thought it was one of the best presented Netflix shows I've watched just from episode 1 so far. Alex, you bring up such a good point because I've talked about the Wheel of Time show every week. And everyone knows where I stand. I'm cautiously optimistic. I think there's a lot of hills to climb. I think it could be really good. But I sat down today, and as I watched Shadow and Bone, I was thinking about Wheel of Time. I'm thinking about The Witcher season 2 coming up that I'm really excited about. And I'm just like, as readers, why do we love adaptations so much? And it sounds like maybe you don't. So
I do.
You do? Okay.
It's life. Shadow and Bone, I don't care about because what are the books called? Is it Shadow and Bone? Like I just
no, it's not your wheelhouse. I agree.
That's just not my thing.
I don't read YA. So
Game of Thrones, I think, was fantastic, obviously, and that was like a phenomenon. Just how well made it was, and the budget and everything. Like I think Lord of the Rings is not a great adaptation because they change a lot, but like the movies are so fantastic that's like the pinnacle of like a fantasy movie to me.
Yeah.
And then a lot of adaptations just aren't that good. Or you see shit like The Watch, where like now that I'm reading Discworld, I'm like, what is this show? Like this has nothing to do with Discworld other than you called it The Watch. And like, I don't know, a lot of like comic book adaptations to movies have been great. Like I love MCU movies. The shows have been largely crap to me. So like I'm not looking forward to a lot of the Marvel shows. Yeah. And even like the Lord of the Rings show, I have no idea what it is.
Second
like I think it's the Third Age is what it's going to be. It's pre Lord of the Rings, but it's like a $500 million a budget season. So it's like crazy money. I hope it's good, but I don't even know what to expect there. So I'm just like, hopefully it's good.
This is something I said last week. I'm gonna say it again because I can't believe that $500 million mark. If I'm a Lord of the Ring fan,
yeah,
I'm nervous. And I said last week, I said if that show does slightly worse than they expect, canceled immediately.
Yeah, probably. It's
And that's a huge advantage to Wheel of Time, because Wheel of Time's budget is a fraction of what that. It's still a big budget, don't get me wrong, but it's a fraction of what they're spending on Lord of the Rings. So Wheel of Time has room to grow, and that's where my optimism kind of comes through. The challenge with Wheel of Time, in my opinion, is how to adapt all of that material.
Well, that's also going to be an issue with Wheel of Time, because basically you're just going to have to cut 90% of the POV stuff that happens outside of the main cast, because you're not going to have time for it. Which, sure, to adapt it to television, you kind of have to. Like, you're going to have to drop a lot of these characters that are named characters and play a role, but might not be important. Like, you're going to go through, the main 5 or 6 characters, and then maybe like a subset of that, and that's probably where you have to draw the line, right? Because unless you have 45 episode seasons, you're not going to be able to introduce everybody. There's a million different Aes Sedai that have POVs or names, and like, you're not going to fit all that. So like, I have no idea what to even expect out of the shows. Like, how much are they going to pull from? They're probably going to do what a lot of other shows and movies do, where like they introduce characters earlier than they would in the books and sort of like change the storyline a little bit. So
yeah, you're going to see things running congruent that you wouldn't imagine, but
Game of Thrones, like, what they did really well too is, one, the budget was great. Everything from like the costume design, the music, the actors, everything like brought that to life. And then there were some things that they did worse than the books, and there's some things they did better than the books, like giving Baelish and Varys POVs and having them be like main characters in the show. You don't get that in the books, and I feel like a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah,
and you get a sort of a different experience. And like, seeing Hardhome, you didn't see that in the books.
That's right. Yeah,
but you got an entire episode dedicated to Hardhome. Like, that's awesome.
Also,
like, adaptations can be done really well and then go on too long and fall off a cliff.
Yeah,
but
well, when you stop adapting and you're making your own material, that's where D&D got.
I don't know. It's like, I'm cautiously optimistic. I hope Wheel of Time is good. I hope the Lord of the Rings show is good. Like, I hope all these are good, because I want to see stuff adapted. I want to see Red Rising adapted, and apparently that fell through years ago. But like, I don't trust necessarily people to do them correctly, or like the way that I would see it. I don't know. It's sort of like a weird expectation, I guess.
What is the one series you don't want to be adapted because you're too afraid it would ruin it?
I don't know.
I feel like it's Red Rising. Like, when I think of Alex, I think Red Rising.
That's my favorite series. So like, I think you could do it pretty well though. So like, I do want to see that happen, and I think it would work better as a show than a movie. But I think, honestly, something so here, I'll say either Mistborn or Stormlight. And that's simply because I think they're going to try to adapt everything that Sanderson writes, because he's Brandon Sanderson and he's really popular.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, at least reading Mistborn, I picture all of this as anime. I don't picture live action Mistborn. I don't picture live action Stormlight. I feel like unless you had a gargantuan MCU level budget, it would just look bad. So I picture it as an anime, and I'd rather see it as an anime, honestly.
Christian just threw his cell phone through his monitor.
But if it, like, Stormlight would need such a big budget. You would need Disney.
You need Star Wars money.
You need Disney money.
Yeah.
To make Stormlight Archive a reality. And then I would be like, cool, that's fine. But if I see an announcement for like The Way of Kings being adapted for Netflix, and I'm just like, okay, this is gonna be garbage. Like, it's gonna look like a CW show. It's gonna be corny. I don't know.
My biggest issue with adaptations is, most of the time, and this is not just with fantasy,
video games,
or I go, oh my God, I wish HBO had done this.
There's that too, right? And that's probably the bias, but like, HBO, just from like the maturity level to what they're willing to show and just their track record, like they're just pretty good at making television. Like, they make good shows. and I feel like a lot of Netflix originals are kind of bad. Uh,
There's
I
been some
haven't
good
followed a
ones.
lot of Prime originals, but like they're sort of hit or miss. So
Prime, I will say this about Prime. So Prime, Bezos is very big on, for some reason, adapting stuff. Like he wants book stories, right? They did Man in the High Castle. I thought it was fine. That was good.
yeah,
There were some moments that were great, some of them not so great. The Expanse, so the funny thing about The Expanse is when The Expanse was being adapted, which by the way might be the best adaptation I've seen, if I'm being honest. I really
yeah,
think so. And now I say that with only reading one book, but just off that, and then the people I know who have read all the books also say that, so I feel pretty confident in that statement. But The Expanse, this is very interesting. Sci-fi, a couple of years back, this is probably back in 2014, whenever Expanse came out, they were going through a rebranding. They said, we don't want to be the sci-fi channel that has like, Sharknado 85 or whatever on. They said,
yeah,
we're coming back. We're going to be serious. We're going to do original content that's going to be big budget. They had a new CEO.
yeah,
So they did a couple things. They had a mini series, some other shows, and Expanse was their like child. Like they're like, this is going to be it.
yeah,
This is going to change our reputation on cable. And Jeff Bezos lost in a betting war against Sci-Fi. That's how much money Sci-Fi put into The Expanse. It won all these awards. It did everything, but Sci-Fi said, we're going back to Sharknado. And they canceled The Expanse because they couldn't afford the budget they were asking
yeah.
for. And Jeff Bezos said, thank you, bitch. And he went, whoop,
And
pulled it
Bezos
over.
just has all the money.
And he just said, oh, you want how much money? And
Yeah.
he just threw a checkbook at them. So I like the fact that Bezos has, and apparently I say Bezos because apparently he wanted that show. Like that was his idea. So I think it's interesting that Amazon clearly has a goal of adapting literature, and the fact that they have Wheel of Time and Lord of the Rings. Like I wonder what else they're going to try to pick up. And this is a very big moment with both these shows to show, is Amazon Netflix or is it HBO quality? Like this is a big splitting point here. So I am rooting so hard for both of these shows. I hope they do.
I don't root against any of it. I hope they're all awesome.
Oh,
but
yeah,
like there's a track record of a lot of things not being great. And then like I'm a huge gamer. Video game movies suck. Like
yeah.
I went and saw Warcraft opening night. I'm a gigantic Warcraft nerd.
Did you really?
That movie's dog shit. Like all me and my buddies all went because we love Warcraft. That movie's crap. But it's like I love Resident Evil games. Those movies that's like a great example of this has nothing to do with Resident Evil, but it's called Resident Evil and it's terrible. And just video game movies are just bad.
Yeah, I never got into the Resident Evil movies. I remember renting them with my dad from the grocery store back when they used to do it, and we were like, oh, this could be sick. And it was not sick. In fact, it sucked. Good Omens was great. Yeah, that's one I really want to watch. American Gods just got canceled, so I probably won't check that out. But I've heard Good Omens, the show and the books, are really good. And now that I've read Pratchett, I'm on. Like I'm in. Anything Terry Pratchett's going to be in for me.
Shows getting canceled is probably a good point too, because HBO, aside from like Game of Thrones and Ballers, for some reason, they axe shows after like a season or two, and so does Netflix. You hit that third season, and then you see stuff get canceled.
Yep.
So it's like I hope with Prime, since they're putting so much money into it, that they at least let it breathe for a little bit and see it through, because that would be terrible if they put $1 billion in these 3 franchises and then just cancel Wheel of Time or whatever the Middle Earth show is going to be because it didn't get like the best ratings. But that's what I'm kind of worried about.
The return on stream is what I'll call it. After season 2, data shows that shows decline in popularity. They peak mid season 2 generally, and then they'll fall off right after season 2. It's happened to almost every show actually.
Yeah.
Through time. I was reading this, maybe it was in Bloomberg. It was like a year ago. I was reading it, and they were talking about why. Was it Bloomberg? I can't remember, but they were talking about why Game of Thrones was so special, because Game of Thrones actually peaked in season 3. And then they peaked again and again and again. Yeah. But they broke the mold. And there's a pattern with shows that do well. They break the season 3 slump, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
I am very worried about cancellations for Wheel of Time. And the reason why I say that is because this is the only chance Wheel of Time has to be adapted.
Yeah, probably.
This is it. I mean, Lord of the Rings, there'll be another trilogy. There'll be something, If someone adapts Mistborn and messes it up on Nickelodeon or some bullshit, like we'll get it back.
Nickelodeon.
We'll get it back. All right. But Wheel of Time is such a it's big. It's so big. I just don't think anyone else. Rafe Judkins is the guy that said, I'm going to step up and I'm going to do it. So I hope to God he knocks it out of the park just for the fandom, and in the genre in general. And obviously I've said some negative things about Wheel of Time, but don't get it twisted. I still want to see it succeed. And I still like the overall concept of Wheel of Time. I really do.
That's also the good thing about a TV adaptation is most of the problems that people have with Wheel of Time, with it being like taking too long to get from point A to point B, or spending too much time with side characters that aren't important, or random lengthy description of things that don't move the plot forward. They'll probably cut all that. And that might piss off like super Wheel of Time fans, but for like a general audience or people like us where like I like it Wheel of Time a lot, but I fully can look at some of the stuff and be like, yeah, I don't care about a third of this book because it doesn't do anything for the book. And all that stuff you don't necessarily like, because you can do a lot visually. You don't have to describe things because you see it. So that inherently cuts a lot of that the page count down. And traveling, you don't necessarily have to show every inn that Matt and Tom go into. You don't have to see all of that. Like, or you could do a time lapse. Like you could skip. Like there's ways that you can do things in film to skip these things that take hundreds of pages to get through. So that's the good thing too, is you don't necessarily even have to cut it, but you show it in a different way and it naturally speeds things up.
Absolutely. So. Now, between you and Christian hating on all these end scenes, I'm going to tell you what, guys, if I don't have at least 4 end stops in the first season, I'm out.
Every single episode, they just open up in a new end.
Yes, please. For the love of, I love me end scenes. They're the best. They're the absolute best. Oh yeah, here we go. Christian's jumping in here. Better words have never been spoken, Alex. Amen.
Well, let's be honest. So super Wheel of Time fans will defend everything in the Wheel of Time and say that it's all necessary. You can't cut anything. It's all world building. It's not. There are things that happen in these books that it's like you did not need to spend that much time on it. You just don't. But what I'm most interested in seeing in the Wheel of Time is how are they going to explain the concept of the Wheel of Time in TV format? Like, is it just going to be like a 10-minute like opening crawl of what the Wheel of Time is and like how Sidar and Sidene work and how everything is like a rebirth? And are they going to show the prologue from book 1? Like, because I feel like I want to see them open up with the prologue of Eye of the World. I feel like if you do that though, it's going to confuse the shit out of everybody that doesn't know what's happening. People are going to be so lost.
I don't think they're going to show the prologue. In fact, I feel like somebody had told me that they confirmed they weren't going to show the prologue. But do you remember the Lord of the Rings movies? Like that opening where like that's
kind of what I'm talking about. That's probably what they'll do.
That would be sick, honestly. Because whenever I rewatched the movies this year for the first time,
I rewatched them like every 3 weeks.
So crazy thing about me, I hadn't rewatched them since the theaters.
That's so wild.
That shit was brand new.
Times.
That shit was brand new, 4K on my OLED. It looked beautiful. And I just remember I was watching the opening, this past Christmas, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot how good the intro to this movie was.
It's awesome.
It's perfect. It's the best trilogy of all time. I mean,
the films are so good, man. They're like comfort food to me. I can read with Lord of the Rings on because I'm just like, oh, I'm comfortable. Like,
then you can
in the background. And I look up, I'm like, oh, Helm's Deep again. Sweet.
I hope Gandalf shows up in time. I think Wheel of Time could open up with something maybe a little bit like that, but they probably can't because the Wheel of Time show is also going to be around the same time as Lord of the Rings show. I think it's interesting. I also do think one good thing, not one, but a good thing about the Wheel of Time community is like some of the really big fans, like the Dusty Wheel and Rhythma, Heroes of the Horn, like they are saying, hey guys, we need to be prepared that there's going to be some cuts. There's going to be some things that are going to be different. Like they're trying to like set those expectations.
Soften the blow.
Now you're going to have yahoos that are just mad, right? Pitchforks, the first thing they see, I remember seeing people mad that Roose Bolton wasn't at Harrenhal, and it was Tywin Lannister in Game of Thrones, which was one of the best changes they did for TV. Yeah. Oh my God, those scenes were amazing. But you're always going to have people with pitchforks. But I think that if people in the community, and especially big content creators, like the Dusty Wheel and such, like if they are able to set those expectations, maybe it'll lessen the blow a little bit when like a character gets cut, for instance, right?
Yeah.
I think
you kind of have to though. Like
Oh,
something like the Wheel of
yeah.
Time with as many named characters, even Faithful in the Fallen, if you adapted that, there's too many characters to involve everybody. A Song of Ice and Fire, there's too many characters. And yeah, I think they messed up with certain characters in the show, but like you're going to see characters merged. You're going to see characters cut. You're probably going to see new characters, which I think they've already announced on the Wheel of Time show is like they've cast a bunch of people's parents in the books or
really
like there's like Matt's parents and like Rand's parents. Like they have like cast members of people's parents that will be at least in the beginning of the show because they're going to show like all these other characters that you don't really follow in the book, but are there. So, and I think there is at least one that they've like created for the show.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They'll figure out something and hopefully it works. But
Alex, I have a big question for you.
What's that?
Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and
okay. So I talked to Jimmy about this when I started recording. The issue, sir, is that I'm sitting facing my monitors right now, and my bookshelves are all right here. So for me to use StreamYard from my computer, which is down here, and use my webcam, I would need to figure out how to have my webcam over there facing this way. And I don't have a cord long enough. So you get to see a dog bed. You get to see a table with my camera stand. You get to see my light and books that no one knows that I have yet. Because wait, here we go. Yes, these are all books that I bought recently.
I thought at 3,000 subs, you got a production team. I thought YouTube sent somebody out and they.
Yeah, they said because of COVID, they like couldn't show up to the house on time. Yeah, you know.
They were busy.
Yeah. My agent didn't cut, you know.
I understand completely. I do want to say, Brian, thank you for stopping by the stream. Thanks for putting in the comment. We were talking about your books earlier. And
I'm trying to tell everybody, man, read these.
I could, you know, I'm getting to them this year. I said it was my my treat for myself this year because I have a very strong feeling that I'm going to enjoy them. And it's something that a lot of people that I respect have had very positive things to say about. So
and he's got the coolest freaking signature.
And Brian Lee Durfee Reviews is a great place to get some book reviews. Probably the widest selection of book reviews, honestly. And I love it. Lost and Discovery says, "Don't spoil our secrets, Jimmy." Yeah, I quit my job as soon as I hit 1,000 subs. It's wild. Like,
yeah, me too. That, like, somebody asked me in my because I just did a Q&A video. They were like, "Do you have a job outside of YouTube?" And I was just like, "Yeah," because if I didn't, I would be homeless. Because I made $175 from YouTube. Like, it's not enough to live on.
Let me ask you this: if this ever got big enough, would you quit your day job?
Yeah, but I would have to get like Daniel Green size to do that.
Yeah.
So
I think I'm in a really unique position where I really enjoy my day job, and these two things are so different that I think I would continue to do my day job.
Yeah, I mean, this is a hobby for me. I really enjoy it as a hobby. I would love to just work for myself and have it be a full-time thing. Realistic, like I know how money works on YouTube and ad revenue works, and I don't make anywhere in the realm of possibilities of it being a job.
Hey, I covered my Audible subscription, and I told you that was my goal.
There you go. I use this as my book money, basically.
Yeah, that's the goal, right?
Between like Patreon and YouTube AdSense, which arguably is not very much. It's just an excuse to buy books.
Yeah.
So here, I'll do this. Let's see. Can I join this twice? We'll do it this way. Just to appease the crowd that wants to see.
I think you can. And Brian has a good point. If you just use your cell phone, you won't have that problem.
I know why he says that, and it's because I think he records on his cell phone.
Brett actually has a good question. Is your series going to be a trilogy or 5 books? I've heard both. As far as I know, it's a trilogy. But...
It's a trilogy that was going to be 5, and then the publisher said, "You're crazy. It's going to be 3."
Okay. Let's see if I can.
Wait.
There. Let me remove the chat.
Let me unhook my mic real quick. This is some next level content creation right here.
This is great.
There.
So these are the shelves, everyone, that I was talking about. Look how amazing these are. Other than the Cowboys shit in the middle. Is that an ultra wide monitor you have there?
It's 2 monitors.
Okay, I have a
just
34 inch. That's fine.
a single one, but yeah, this is why, because I would have had to sit back here because my computer's down there.
Oh, dude, the cabinet with the fans outward. This is beautiful.
So I can't face this direction unless I use my phone. But but then I would have been like sitting like this, I guess.
Whoa, there's so much Alex going on right now.
It's like exception.
Yeah, those are the best looking shelves in the booktube community, in my opinion.
I agree with your opinion.
I don't even think it's relatively close, to be honest.
It's not even close. They're the best.
Brian has confirmed that it's 3 huge books and not a 5-book series, which is pretty cool. Timothy asked, Jimmy, is the mustache coming back? I had
You're not
the
allowed.
least amount of views on my videos when I grew a mustache, and it's a damn shame because I think my I almost said Breach of Peace again. The Trouble with Peace review is possibly my best book review I've done.
I can't look at you with that.
Oh, I look terrible. My wife, she actually started the divorce process, but then I got her to come back when I shaved it. So
I just close my eyes when I watch those videos.
Those shelves, though, yes, I'm telling you, man, those shelves, they took you viral for a reason, right? For a reason.
Look on Twitter or on my channel, you'll see a better view of them. That was not.
And Alex's tag on Twitter is @Fantasy Book Talk, which is what I thought you were going to call your channel for the longest time. So when I would refer to you in videos, I would just call you Fantasy Book Talk.
It's in my banner. And I just decided that as I was looking around, I was like, everyone just uses their name. I'm just going to use my name.
Yeah.
So that's why I went that direction.
I can like swap us around and stuff.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Threw me off. I don't know what to do.
I got to be here. I know where to point. So I'm like, I'm in a good spot. Well, we're at about 2 hours here, and I don't want to take up all of your Friday night.
It didn't even feel like that.
No, dude, this is so fun.
That went by so quick.
Kelsey says no. This is my wife. She says no mustache. She says please.
I agree. She seems very smart.
She's a lot smarter than me. You know
that mustache. I think my wife actually would have left if I did that.
Sarah's going to watch The Godfather for the 1600th time. You're killing it, Jimmy. Great talk. Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate it. But actually, this is a question I wouldn't mind putting up here real quick. Am I right that you plan to publish the book this year? Brian, if you could answer that in chat, I'd be really, really thankful so I can plan when to read your first 2 books. Because
you should have already read them. I don't know why you're wasting your time.
You know, you got to save a little something special for the end of the year. That's been my thing. In 2021, it had to happen, you know.
As long as you read them eventually. And then if you don't like them, then I can't talk to you anymore.
Well, I'm pretty much positive I'm going to love
it. It sounds like it's going to be right up your alley.
I have 2 beautiful signed editions. So
there you go.
I was very fortunate enough to receive those. Cowboys fan 2. Take it easy, Alex. Draft next week.
Hell yeah. God, the draft is next week.
Yeah. Dude, this year's flying by.
It's crazy.
It really is.
Cowboys are going to do something stupid and draft like an injury-prone linebacker again.
Well, I can hope. I don't have any ill will towards the Cowboys like everybody else, but I know a lot of people do. And Jacob Bishop, who we talked about earlier, that you inspired.
Yeah, I did. I said just watch my old videos. They're garbage, and yours will be too. But just start it.
Yeah, and
Jake and echoey Mike and all.
Jake is someone that I really enjoy the content he puts out. In fact, for any of you live ship Traders Trilogy fans or Robin Hobb fans out there, I'm going to be doing a full trilogy spoiler discussion for live ships with Jake on my channel, probably in about 2 to 3 weeks when we can work that out. And I'm really, really excited about that because I thought Jake's review was one of the very best I saw. And I know a lot of other big Robin Hobb fans that felt the same way, which is really cool.
That's why I kept telling him to just start his channel, man, because he always has so much to say about the books.
Yeah, very thoughtful, and actually can be funny sometimes, not on purpose, but, you know, we'll give him a little bit of credit, right? Brian Lee Durfee says, Simon & Schuster Saga Press publishes the book, not me, and they have it scheduled for spring 2022. So that gives me my answer. That means perfect. Right before 2021 closes, I'll be reading those 2 very big books, and I'm so excited for the 3rd one already. I haven't even read the first 2, but I'm pretty excited. So All right. With that, I think we're going to call it a night. I know this is I've been doing almost 3 hours every night, but I was sick all week. I'm so glad that I was able to make it. And I don't want to take all of Alex's Friday because I'm sure you got some games you want to play or something, right?
I don't have shit to do right now.
The kids are asleep. That's good enough, right?
Peace and quiet. That's about it.
Well, we're definitely going to do this again.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell everybody where they can find you at on the interwebs and in the face space.
Of course. On YouTube at Alex Nieves, that's my channel, and at Fantasy Book Talk on Twitter. My Instagram, I just promote my YouTube. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, what is my Instagram handle? This is embarrassing.
I have like 700 followers and I've never posted anything on Instagram.
I look at Jimmy flexing on me over here.
It's all from my past wrestling experience. You know what I'm saying?
It's Alex B. Nieves. Are we just flexing on camera now? Is that
what's happening? There it is.
Yeah, I don't wrestle. I used to in the backyard with my brother and jumped off of decks and did dumb shit and almost killed myself. So.
Well, I am going to be up. I don't know if you've seen the boxing news recently, but I am going to be starting booktube boxing.
I will not be participating in boxing anybody.
Christian and I also threw on the idea of a booktube house, kind of like the real world, where like a bunch of booktubers just get into an Airbnb for like 3 weeks and they end up hating each other. Like, you're always reading the Wheel of Time. I hate a song. You know what I mean? He's never going to finish that series. I thought it would
be like TikTok houses, but booktube.
Yeah, it'd be awful. It'd be terrible. Everyone would just be reading sprints.
Just be reading.
It'd be the worst.
All right, guys, let's do a reading sprint. All right, classic television right here.
And people just get annoyed at small things. I just hate the way Alex turns his pages. I just hate it.
Listen. You're already talking shit, and this hasn't happened yet.
Well, thank you, man, for letting me have some of your time. I think not only I enjoyed it, but I think everybody in chat really enjoyed it.
Yeah, man.
And
thanks for having me.
I hope Loki has a good night. Is adorable in the background.
He's tired, man.
Yeah, same. Same here. But this was a blast. I'll be back next week with a new guest. I got to figure it out, and we'll definitely have you back on, Alex, because this is too easy. Right?
Yeah, man, whenever you want.
Just too easy. So everyone, thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. And make sure to subscribe to Alex's channel. He's one of the best book reviewers. It's where I go to get a lot of my recommendations. And make sure to follow the channel here. If you're not already following, hit subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm going to do more of these kind of live discussion podcast type things. And I do a review pretty much every single week. And I'll be doing a lot more spoiler discussions in the future. Thank you so much. And I hope you're good. Hope you're healthy and safe. And until next time, remember to always keep turning the page.
There's going to be Banished Land content.
You damn right.